Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. President Donald Trump is set to visit the Justice Department this afternoon, pushing his tough on crime agenda and vowing to end weaponized justice. Meanwhile, more executive orders are also on the way. After meeting for multiple days, G7 foreign ministers come out with a joint statement. What Secretary of State Marco Rubio says about addressing Russia and the dangers posed by China. Democratic attorneys general suing the Trump administration for firing nearly half of the education department. We'll have a legal analyst break down the latest debate in Trump's government downsizing efforts. A vote on government funding is expected today. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer vows to support the GOP funding resolution. However, Nancy Pelosi issues a statement calling on Democratic senators to reject it. A possible breakthrough in hostage negotiations. The Hamas terror group says an agreement has been reached to release a young Israeli-American soldier. More on how Israel responds.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Donald Trump is heading to the Justice Department this afternoon. He's expected to give some heated remarks about what he says has been a weaponization of the justice system. Trump's remarks come following several government-led investigations and prosecutions against him. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this morning that Trump's speech will center on restoring law and justice to the country.
In the last 4 years under the Biden administration, we unfortunately saw a Department of Justice that was weaponized against Americans for their political ideologies. It was not focused on fighting violent crime and restoring law and order and public safety. So the president will be talking about his intention to restore those very basic American values to our country. And he will also be there with fentanyl families and angel moms who have lost their children at the hands of illegal migrant criminals who the previous administration allowed into our country, and also, of course, to illegal Chinese fentanyl, which, as you all know, the president feels very strongly about cracking down on drug cartels, drug trafficking, and human trafficking as well. So, and as anyone who saw President Trump and his legal team fighting back, they know how to do it. He was indicted nearly 200 times, and he's in the Oval Office now because all of the indictments, all of these injunctions have always been unconstitutional and unfair. They are led by partisan activists who are trying to usurp the will of this president, and we're not going to stand for it.
President Trump's speech at the DOJ this afternoon will be the first of any president in a decade. He'll be joined by Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. Both have been staunch allies of Trump throughout these cases, saying that he's been treated unfairly by the DOJ. The president is also expected to speak on refocusing the Justice Department to crack down on drug cartels, violent crime, and illegal immigration. After meeting for multiple days, G7 foreign ministers come out with a joint statement focused heavily on Russia and Ukraine. The diplomats warn Moscow to agree to a ceasefire or face further sanctions such as oil price caps. Secretary of State Marco Rubio commented on the possibility of sanctions after today's meeting.
As far as U.S. sanctions are concerned, the president's made clear, the president on 2 occasions in the past week has reminded everybody that the U.S. has these options available to it, but he doesn't want to do that right now because he's in the hopes of attracting people, both sides, to a process where we can negotiate peace.
Another topic included in today's joint statement is on the Middle East. Washington wanted to make changes in the language regarding Gaza and the Middle East. The final draft of the statement made no mention of a 2-state solution, which had been included before. The U.S. also asked for the statement to include tougher wording on China.
The Chinese Communist Party has pursued both economic and foreign policies that allow them to benefit from all the good things about the global order, but ignore all of its responsibilities in ways that leave us in danger of being, not just us, but the broader world, of being overly dependent on China for critical supply chains, for rare earth minerals, for key technologies.
The Department of Education said its Office for Civil Rights is investigating 45 universities now. The department cites complaints that the schools engaged with a controversial program. Allegations are that the universities partnered with a program that seeks to increase diversity in college business schools. The department said in a statement the activities violated a 1964 civil rights law. That law was originally passed to reduce discrimination against non-white Americans. President Trump and many conservatives have argued that efforts to increase diversity are unfair and discriminate against white Americans. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said, quote, "Today's announcement expands our efforts to ensure universities are not discriminating against their students based on race and race stereotypes." And the Trump administration today is expected to move ahead with a second wave of layoffs and budget cuts. Agencies had until yesterday to submit downsizing plans. This new round of layoffs comes amid President Trump's push to reduce the federal bureaucracy. So far, DOGE has overseen potential cuts of more than 100,000 jobs across the 2.3 million member federal civilian workforce. Thousands of programs and contracts deemed wasteful or counter to the administration's aims have also been canceled. The prospect for further job losses comes with financial markets rattled by tariffs and potential recession fears. Nearly 100 demonstrators were arrested yesterday after storming the lobby of Trump Tower in Manhattan. They gathered to protest the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil, a pro-Palestinian activist who's currently facing deportation by the Department of Homeland Security. The demonstration was organized by Jewish Voice for Peace, which describes itself as a progressive Jewish anti-Zionist group. The NYPD said they arrested 98 people on charges of trespassing, obstruction, and resisting arrest. Some of them were dragged out of the building in zip ties. Khalil is currently in custody at an ICE facility in Louisiana. Born and raised in Syria, he was one of the main leaders in the pro-Palestinian protest at Columbia University last year. Record shows that Khalil was involved in the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, which is an organization that came under scrutiny for its possible ties with terrorist group Hamas. The Trump administration revoked Khalil's green card on national security grounds. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump said, "If you support terrorism, quote, your presence is contrary to our national and foreign policy interests, and you are not welcome here." And detained pro-Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil is suing to block Columbia University from sharing disciplinary records with lawmakers. Khalil and 7 other students filed a complaint yesterday. The suit comes after the House Education and Workforce Committee requested the university to provide records of actions it took after last year's campus protests. The students argue this would infringe upon their First Amendment rights and that it violates federal law on how schools handle student information. Columbia University has expelled or suspended some students who took over its Hamilton Hall last year, this amid those pro-Palestinian protests. It has also temporarily rescinded the diplomas of others who have graduated already. The university yesterday said its judicial board levied a range of sanctions against the students who occupied the building last year. The school did not say how many students exactly were affected. Now, the Trump administration last week canceled $400 million in grants and contracts from Columbia University. It cited the school's failure to combat anti-Semitism on its campus. Columbia University's interim president has called the administration's concerns legitimate. She said the school was working with the government to address them. Moving on now, the Senate will vote today on a resolution to extend government funding. It needs Democrat votes in order to pass, and now the party's Senate leader, Chuck Schumer, is on board, making it unlikely that a government shutdown will happen at midnight tonight. Here's Melina Weiskup with the details.
Senate Leader John Thune needs at least 8 Democrats to pass the House's Republican-led resolution to keep the lights on past midnight tonight.
The only thing standing between us and keeping the government open is get the Democrats in.
And now more Democrats are coming to the table. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer vowed to reluctantly sign off on the legislation after railing against it just one day earlier.
I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country, to minimize the harms to the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down. There is nobody in the world, nobody, who wants to shut the government down more than Donald Trump and more than Elon Musk. We should not give it to them.
Schumer's support signals he'll pave the path for a handful of other Democrats to vote yes today. Some have described it as an impossible choice for Democrats.
We are in a perverse, bizarro land where we're having to decide between letting Donald Trump wreck the government this way or wreck the government that way.
Though many are still vowing to stick to their no vote.
So I know for a fact I will not vote for something that cuts veteran services. And that's what's in that bill. Whether it passes, whether not.
The bill boosts the Pentagon budget by $6 billion, slashes domestic funds by $13 billion, and boosts funding for ICE to carry out mass deportations. Senators will vote to start debate this afternoon. The first vote will signal whether there's enough Democrat votes to pass it. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Joining us now for further discussion on this funding bill is George Carrillo, CEO of the Hispanic Construction Council and former Democratic candidate for governor of Oregon. George, thank you for joining us today. I want to get your take on all of this. We're seeing sort of a divide right now in the Democratic Party leadership. What does this tell you about where the party stands right now?
Hi, thanks for having me on again. It's good to see you. I think right now we're seeing this divide, and it's the same old politics from the Democratic Party. They're getting it wrong again. And this is where there's this disconnect between political leaders and understanding what it takes to run government. We see that through Elon Musk. We see that right now through the Democratic Party. I support Senator Schumer in his efforts because it is the lesser of the two evils, to be quite honest with you. We can't allow the government to shut down critical services to our veterans, to our seniors, to people seeking care through Medicaid. All these things are on the table right now. And we know if we give the president a pathway to shut it down, what will Elon Musk do during that shutdown period, and cutting more jobs, putting more stress on the services that are needed in this country. And so in this, I think that Democrats are really getting it wrong, and they really need to start thinking about the American people and stop thinking about their political position.
Speaking of the American people, have you heard anyone in your community worried about a government shutdown?
That's sort of been the talk of the town yesterday, and we're all really worried about what this will mean for the government, as the government does provide a lot of resources to state and local municipalities, and we really need the federal government right now working at all cylinders. We're seeing cuts everywhere, and we're the people that are here, boots on the ground, providing services to the community. We need our federal government to continue working. Right now is not the time to shut things down. Just look at how the market has been responding to the tariffs that the president has been imposing in this trade war. We are seeing decline everywhere, and this is one that we cannot afford to get wrong.
We'll come back to that in a moment, but I want to get your take first on what Representative Nancy Pelosi had to say. So we saw her issue a statement that says, quote, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have offered the Congress a false choice between a government shutdown or a blank check that makes a devastating assault on the well-being of working families across America. We must have a better choice, a 4-week funding extension to keep government open, and negotiate a bipartisan agreement. What do you think?
So I can agree with parts of that. I think that that's a good strategy. But what Democrats fail to understand right now is that we really don't have a lot of power right now. Republicans have the presidency and control Congress right now. If this is something that we really wanted to work on a bipartisan deal, we should have done a better a job in November of electing more officials to the Democratic Party. Instead, right now, what we're faced with two terrible choices. But unfortunately, that is at the failure of the Democratic Party. And so what I'm asking them to do is to get on message. Really, don't create more divide within our own party. This is the lesser of two evils. Let's support Senator Schumer, and let's not continue to create this divide between the Senate and the House and within our own caucus.
So I think what's really interesting in this statement from Pelosi is the fact that she mentions this bipartisan agreement. What do you think that would look like for her and for people who support her?
I think what this looks like is that we're not going to see more spending like on certain topics, like whether it's increase in military funding or increasing in enforcement of immigration. That there's not going to be any verbiage in these bills that are going to cut out Medicaid or services to veterans. I think that those are all things that can be negotiated. But in this administration right now, they're making it very clear. They want funding for military. That's very clear. They've made it very clear that entitlements like Medicaid is a Ponzi scheme. That's what Elon Musk said the other day on Fox News. So there's things here that they're just not negotiable for the Republican Party. And, my criticism to them is that in providing tax cuts to the wealthy, you're really going to be hurting the American people. And come this next midterm, your jobs will be on the line if you continue to get this wrong. But also, too, Democrats need to come to the table and provide some real solutions to our problems today and not create more divide when we have a very difficult decision to make.
George, that's exactly my next question. Do Democrats have a concrete platform, a concrete agenda with a clear outline for the American people right now?
Right now, in my own party, I don't believe we do. I think that we are still very divided in understanding how do we represent the Democratic Party. We have leaned so far to the left and we've created this environment where if you don't agree with certain aspects of the Democratic Party, then we're going to cancel you. And that's not diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's only one way of thinking. And within the Democratic Party, we need some strong leadership. We need some new leadership in the party that's going to give us the right direction. And right now, the infighting that's happening with this spending bill is just an example of the continued failure within our own caucus to be able to support each other, to be able to communicate and really come up with a strategy of, with them holding no control in Congress right now, what can we put forward that's really going to touch the American people to show that we can regain their trust?
George, I've got about 30 seconds here. With Democrat lawmakers sort of debating where to go from here, do business leaders that you're in contact with, do they feel like their representatives in Congress have their constituents' best interests at heart?
I believe so. You know, I think that there's a lot of Democrats like myself. We still believe in the party. We haven't left the party. We want this party to be able to grow. I think the Democratic Party just needs to do a better job of understanding all of its constituents and going back to its roots and really gaining the trust of the American people. Because what we're seeing right now is this complete pendulum swing that we've given power to a president that we all knew who he was. He's never hidden who he is. And yet the public felt that we were in the better hands of President Trump than we were with another 4 years of a Democratic leader.
George Carrillo, thank you for your insight today.
Thank you so much. It was great seeing you.
And President Trump is going to speak soon at the Justice Department. Now we have FBI Director Kash Patel speaking. Let's tune in.
What is the best way we can safeguard our citizenry? What are we doing worse? What are we doing better? And what's in between? And when we have those answers for you, you see them delivered in the halls of justice in the courts across this country. And that's the great work that is the tip of the spear. But there is so much work behind it from state and local authorities. We are getting after it, not just where the media normally covers. And I want to highlight the following. The violent crime that plagues our country is also plaguing those on tribal lands. And we are not going to treat them any differently. They all live in the same America that we live in. And they face the same crises that we face. So we will work with our state and local partners on all matters that are affecting tribal lands and Indian reservations to make sure their children are no longer trafficked, to make sure their women are no longer raped and go missing. This mission must be 24/7, 365 from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. But beyond that, we must go extraterritorially, like I've just told you about. We must go down to the furthest reaches of the planet to make sure that we bring you the justice that you have voted for in this new administration, and we will. And this is my promise to you as the director of the FBI for as long as I'm in this seat. We will never, ever stop fighting violent crime. That is the priority of the FBI along with national security. And we will put every resource and every manning that we have on that mission. And lastly, through this great work, you will see tremendous oversight and reforms at our FBI, which will unfold with our partners in Congress over the coming weeks and months and years ahead. But I want you to pay attention also to what's going on in the halls of Congress, because they are providing us with the resources we need to combat the fentanyl crisis. And this administration is providing us with the tools we need by designating the cartels foreign terrorist organizations, because that's exactly how they should be treated, because that's exactly who they are. And in that pursuit, In that pursuit, I look forward to playing a very small part. The FBI will play a very large part, and our interagency partners and our local and state law enforcement officers will start putting more and more and more handcuffs on the bad guys, and good cops across this country will be unleashed to be good cops on a daily basis. And the lasting promise that I will leave you with, and this is a message to the law enforcement community: you have always had the backs of the American people, so the Federal Bureau of Investigation and me as its director will have your backs. Thank you.
Some remarks there from FBI Director Kash Patel. We are still waiting for President Trump to come address the
Ladies and
DOJ,
gentlemen,
and we will
please
keep
welcome
you
Deputy
updated.
Attorney General
Coming
Todd
up,
Blanche.
starting today, a storm is expected to bring severe conditions to 100 million Americans. Forecasters are warning of tornadoes, blizzards, flooding, and fires. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Thanks for staying with us. Vice President J.D. Vance spoke at Vantage Plastics during a tour today with Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler. Vance used the Michigan visit as an opportunity to tout the administration's tariff policies. Here's more on what the vice president had to say.
You hear people saying, well, how dare Donald Trump impose tariffs on foreign countries that have been taking advantage of us for 40 years? And the answer is that unless you're willing to use American power to fight back against what those countries have been doing for a generation, you are never going to rebuild American manufacturing, and you're never going to support the American worker.
Vance said the Trump administration would deliver on its promise to, quote, once again make the U.S. the world's manufacturing superpower. Now, Vance also criticized the preceding Biden administration for failing to rein in persistent inflation and national debt. Vance added that Trump's goal of restoring American manufacturing would be an arduous task. However, the vice president remained optimistic. 12 people were hospitalized after an American Airlines plane caught fire at Denver International Airport yesterday. The airport says all people taken to the hospital had minor injuries. The Federal Aviation Administration said the flight took off from Colorado Springs and was diverted to Denver after the crew reported engine vibrations. According to recordings, a pilot told air traffic control that the plane was cruising slower than normal. The FAA said an engine on the Boeing 737-800 caught fire while taxiing to the gate. Passengers evacuated using the slides. Eyewitness videos show the heart-stopping moment the plane's engine was engulfed by flames. American Airlines said all 172 passengers and 6 crew members were taken to the terminal. And an update now in a leaked documents case. Jack Teixeira was sentenced by a military judge to a dishonorable discharge yesterday after pleading guilty to obstructing justice. The Massachusetts Air National Guard member is serving a 15-year prison sentence for leaking classified national security documents online. The military charges were filed last year. Authorities called the case one of the largest leaks of classified documents in years. Some documents were related to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Teixeira said he felt morally obligated to expose what he described as misinformation from the Biden administration about the war in Ukraine. He argued the Justice Department under Biden had been weaponized against both him and now President Trump. And an update on the recent deaths of actor Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa. Gene Hackman's estate wants to block the public release of autopsy and investigative reports, especially photographs and police body cam video. The couple's partially mummified bodies were discovered at their New Mexico home just last month. Authorities last week announced Hackman died at age 95 of heart disease with complications from Alzheimer's. His death came more than a week after a rare rodent-borne disease took the life of his 65-year-old wife. Hackman's pacemaker last showed signs of activity on February 18th, indicating an abnormal heart rhythm on the day he likely died. The couple's bodies were not discovered until February 26th. The FDA says vaccines for the upcoming respiratory virus season should be trivalent. That would give protection against 2 strands of influenza A and 1 of influenza B. The agency's decision comes without any input from its group of independent vaccine advisors, whose meeting was canceled without explanation late last month. In place of that, the FDA brought together some of its own experts, along with ones from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Department of Defense. The group pored over data from the U.S. and the world about flu viruses that are circulating. And if you've started to see weather warnings pop up on your social media feed, you're in good company. A storm system that dumped rain and snow in the west is moving across the country now. It's expected to bring winds of up to 90 miles per hour to the Central Plains today. Central Texas and Missouri are under fire warnings due to those winds and dry air. Meanwhile, up in the northern plains, up to 8 inches of snow could fall in some areas. The same system is forecast to produce tornadoes and more than 2-inch hail to Iowa and St. Louis. Then tomorrow, those same conditions threaten the southeast. When we come back, attorneys general are suing the Trump administration for firing nearly half of all employees in the Department of Education. They say this will halt key services. The Trump administration saying that is not the case. We'll talk to a legal analyst. Stay with us.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade small batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Supermodel Cindy Crawford doesn't just walk the red carpet, she rocks it. At 58, she steals the show and wows the press. Hollywood Life exclaims Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. While Page 6 raves, she's still as gorgeous as ever. What is Cindy's secret? It's meaningful beauty. And now with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever. Watch as the appearance of lines and wrinkles are diminished in just weeks. It's no wonder everyone's talking about meaningful beauty.
My makeup artist said, your skin has been looking great lately. What products are you using? And I said, I'm using Meaningful Beauty. And she said, really? I've tried Meaningful Beauty before. I love those products. And then the other lady down in the trailer said, I use Meaningful Beauty. I love it.
Our new and improved formulas deliver age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin where wrinkles begin. And this brand new offer is Cindy's most exciting ever. Because when you order, you'll get Cindy's exclusive Super Brightening Duo, a $120 value absolutely free. First, you'll get 60 of our Revive and Brighten eye masks, the celebrity secret that visibly smooths, awakens, and restores the area around your eyes. Next, discover the power of our Vitamin C Biphase Brightening Oil for an immediate boost of glamour and glow.
I'm not ashamed to say I am 53 years old. Thank you, Cindy.
The total effect of this free gift package? A red carpet ready complexion. Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
So make the call or go online now and put yourself on the path to the most beautiful skin of your life. Trust me, it's worth it.
This special offer is not available anywhere else, so don't delay. Scan the code, go to meaningfulbeauty.com, or call the number on your screen now.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Be your own hero.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Democratic attorneys general from 20 states, as well as Washington, D.C., are now suing the Trump administration. This is after the administration announced on Tuesday that it would fire around 1,300 workers. That's roughly half of the workforce at the Department of Education. Now, Trump has repeatedly stated that he wants to return education back to the states. Meanwhile, in a separate case, U.S. District Judge William Alsup ruled that the Office of Personnel Management cannot order federal employees to be fired. And another federal judge issued a temporary restraining order that blocks layoffs across 18 departments and federal agencies. This could lead to thousands of fired workers being reinstated. Joining us now to break this all down is Elise Adamson, legal analyst and former federal prosecutor. Elise, thank you for coming on today. Let me ask you about what the plaintiffs are saying here, right? They're saying that these firings will incapacitate key statutorily mandated functions of the department. But then I also have this statement here from the Education Department's Deputy Assistant Secretary for Communications. It says these firings, they're strategic, internal-facing cuts that will not directly impact students and families. What's your take on all of this?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, first and foremost. So that's an interesting statement from the Department of Education. It actually strikes to the heart of the plaintiff's contentions, really, which is that these firings are tantamount to a gutting of the department, so much so that the department can no longer execute its core functions. And why is that important? Because the executive branch, that being President Trump and the heads of his department, they do have statutory authority to make all personnel decisions. They can issue RIFs, that means fire people, but the agency itself is congressionally created, meaning only an act of Congress can abolish it. So the plaintiffs in this case are arguing they're making so many cuts that the agency cannot carry out its core functions. And now what the department is saying is no, there won't be impacts to families. And indeed, they are going to be able to implement their core functions. And if that is actually true, then the plaintiffs are now on very shaky legal grounds.
Elise, talk to us about the Administrative Procedure Act. I mean, how does that apply here? Why do the plaintiffs argue that these layoffs are arbitrary and capricious?
Well, they're arguing that there's really no bases for these layoffs because, of course, under the APA and under other regulatory authority, even though the executive branch has the authority to lay them off, there is a regulatory scheme in doing so. And from what we've known from the reporting and what the plaintiffs are alleging is that the layoffs are really justified under those regulatory schemes. It's not budgetary reasons. There's no performance-based reasons. It's all really just a cover to reduce the agency so that it can no longer function. Because recall, President Trump has said very publicly that he wants to dismantle the Department of Education. But what he has said publicly and what is happening legally are indeed two very different things.
So how strong of a case, you mentioned there that plaintiffs could have a shaky case in a specific situation, but right now, how strong of a case do they have in terms of claims that these layoffs are part of a broader illegal plan from the Trump administration to really dismantle the education department?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to give you the lawyerly answer, which is it depends, right? This is a very early stage of litigation. If you read the complaint like I did, you see a lot of the allegations are framed upon information and belief. And that's because they just don't have a lot of information yet. They have not started the discovery phase. This is all based upon what they have been told. I think if you credit all the allegations as true, then I think the plaintiffs do have a semi-strong case. If indeed the agency cannot administer its core functions, then I think there is an argument that the executive branch has exceeded its authority, because at this point, it is preventing a congressionally created agency from doing its core functions. And you have to remember, under the separations of power, each branch does have its own separate authority, which the other branch cannot infringe upon. And so if all of those are true, then I think they have an argument. And the very simple way to address their argument is that the executive branch has simply gone too far. They can issue RIFs, but they cannot RIF employees so much so that the agency cannot function. And so if they're true, I think it's a strong case. But if the Department of Education's assertion in its press release is true, that indeed they do have enough workforce to go in and continue to administer the core function of the agency, then that undermines the plaintiff's argument. And I would also note that there is a way to abolish the Department of Education with no questions asked, and that would be through an act of Congress. And Linda McMahon, who is the Secretary of the Department of Education, is actually quoted in the plaintiff's complaint by saying that she intends to work with Congress to achieve that. And so while I do think that some of the claims have some validity, I also think there is a much easier way to address this if it is the will of Congress.
And talk to us more about that from the Trump administration's point of view. How can they go about proving these cuts, they're not going to affect education or these essential programs for disabled students or student loans?
Sure. I don't think that legally the executive branch needs to prove that it's not going to impact some of the programming. Of course, policy priorities shift. That's all within the purview of the executive branch. Of course, they have Title V authority to administer these agencies, and they have oversight over the personnel, and they can make personnel decisions. So there can be impacts. The question is whether or not all of these cuts prevent the agencies from administering their core functions. And I think what the Trump administration, or more specifically the Department of Education, will have to demonstrate to defeat this claim is that indeed they have enough employees to administer their statutorily required duties. And that's very, very specific, because they don't need to be doing it flush with money. They just need to be able to do it. The reduction of force is about 50%. So they just need to show that with half of their workforce, they are still able to administer their core functions and satisfy their statutory obligations.
So, as we did mention earlier, Trump, a big goal of his is really to move education back to the states. And of course, all of this is very preliminary, and we're not sure where it's going to end up going. But if this were to be the case, where these responsibilities were starting to be put back onto the states and the federal government had less of a role, what kind of legal courses could these attorneys general or other lawmakers take to ensure that there's still some sort of a protection system in place for education?
That's a great question, and I don't have a satisfying answer, because at this point, we've never seen anything like this. This is unprecedented. Of course, the Department of Education hasn't always existed, and so there were mechanisms for administering education, but it was never uniform like it is now within the United States. And so the question of how is this going to look? How will there be protections? How can we ensure education for everyone is something that is going to need to be tackled. I think that's one of the reasons that Congress ultimately will not abolish the Department of Education. But I think the answer is, unfortunately, we're just going to have to see.
Now, Alice, along a similar line, I want to ask you about those 2 federal judges that we saw ordering the Trump administration to really essentially reinstate thousands of fired probationary government workers. But then we also saw government lawmakers saying that these firings were lawful because these individual agencies had already reviewed and determined whether these workers were fit for employment. What do you make of this entire situation?
Yeah, I think that this is a really tough situation that's going to be litigated through the court system. So the judge in San Francisco yesterday essentially said that the government had not demonstrated that the proper procedures for termination were carried out before all of these probationary employees were terminated, that essentially it was a sham. I think that was the word he used from the bench, that they couldn't have gone through all of their files and made a performance determination and ordered their reinstatement accordingly. So what they're basically saying is, you did not follow the regulations and you need to do this if you want to terminate these employees. Not that they don't have the power to, but that they didn't do it in the right way. So one has been ordered for reinstatement. There's another case that they issued an injunction, meaning that they can't move forward with terminations. I think what we're going to see is this case is going to go up to the appellate court, especially the San Francisco case. It would go up to the Ninth Circuit. And I think it's ultimately going to end up in the Supreme Court. Now, I think what they need to litigate, because the issue is really, has this been done properly, is the question, has this been done properly? And the government is saying that it has, but they're going to have to take evidence and find out whether or not that is true. And sitting here now, I don't know whether it's true. I can tell you that the judge in San Francisco was incredibly skeptical and said that he wasn't sure that the government's lawyers were being truthful. I think those are very strong statements from the bench indicating that he's just not believing the representations that a thorough review was done of these terminated employees.
So based on what you're saying, Alice, do you see any sort of concern that the judicial branch might be encroaching on the executive branch's power?
I think that's certainly the argument. I think that the Trump administration's position is everything it's doing is well within their authority as the executive branch, because as we already discussed, the executive branch does have the authority to make personnel decisions. I think the hard part is if these decisions are not being made in accordance to the law, well, then all of a sudden there's a bigger question. The executive branch, the executive has the take care clause. It must abide by the take care clause, which means that he must abide by all laws and implement them faithfully. And if that is not happening, then it's not so much an infringement on executive power, then it's going to be an infringement on congressional power and all the other powers as well. So I don't think it's wrong that the matters are being litigated. They're going to take evidence and they're going to make sure that these procedures were followed. I think if there are findings that the procedures were followed properly, well, then I think it is within the purview of the executive branch to lay off these individuals, and these terminations are going to be found to have been lawful.
It's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of these lawsuits. Alice Adamson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on now, ex-central banker Mark Carney will be formally sworn in as Prime Minister of Canada today. Now, Carney cruised to victory on Sunday in a race to become leader of the ruling Liberal Party. He'll be replacing Justin Trudeau, who spent more than 9 years in office.
We respect the United States. We respect President Trump. President Trump has put some very important issues at the top of his agenda. We understand his agenda. We understand the importance of addressing the scourge of fentanyl, which is a challenge here in Canada as well as the United States. And I would say that the measures that have been put in place in recent weeks in Canada and Mexico, also the United States, means that we are making tremendous progress. I'll speak specifically for against fentanyl. We understand the importance President Trump places on American workers and American jobs. We want him and his administration to understand the importance we put on Canadian workers and Canadian jobs. And we will look for avenues to work together so that both objectives are met in terms of both our great economies, just as we are doing And the people behind me have led this, just as we are doing with respect to the scourge of fentanyl.
As of now, Carney has already been officially sworn in and has taken over the position of Prime Minister from Justin Trudeau. Now, Carney is a former head of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. Carney argued his position as an outsider with a history of tackling crises meant he was the best person to take on President Trump. Trump has repeatedly talked about Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States. On Wednesday, Carney told reporters that he was ready to meet Trump when, quote, there is respect for Canada's Canadian sovereignty. He also said he would keep in place retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods until the United States showed Canada some respect. President Trump says U.S. officials had a good and productive discussion with Russian officials. This comes after President Vladimir Putin yesterday said that he still had questions regarding a ceasefire in Ukraine. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the war update.
Special envoy to Russia and Ukraine Steve Witkoff was in Moscow on Thursday. He presented a U.S. proposal for a ceasefire in Ukraine. On Friday, President Trump said, "We had very good and productive discussions with President Vladimir Putin of Russia, and that there is a very good chance that this horrible, bloody war can finally come to an end." Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Friday, saying Trump will now examine the Russian position more closely.
Suffice it to say, I think there is reason to be cautiously optimistic, but by the same token, we continue to recognize this is a difficult and complex situation.
On Thursday, Putin publicly said he still has questions regarding the truce. For example, if it would allow Ukraine to regroup its soldiers and supply more weapons. Russia now says Witkoff received more information in addition to the questions Putin raised.
Witkoff was received by President Putin. Additional information was provided to the Russian side. And also, in fact, through Witkoff, Putin conveyed information and additional signals to President Trump.
Ukraine already accepted the proposed 30-day ceasefire earlier this week. But Putin also questions who'd enforce the truce along the 1,200 miles long front line. The Ukrainian side commented on that on Friday.
We have already begun to form a national team that will develop appropriate procedures to properly monitor a possible ceasefire.
Putin says he'd like to have a phone call with President Trump to talk about the details of the truce. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
The Hamas terror group said today that it has accepted a proposal to release the last living American-Israeli hostage and the bodies of 4 other hostages who died in captivity. That is, if Israel begins the next phase of ceasefire talks towards a permanent end to the war. Israel dismissed the offer. Hamas offered the release New Jersey native Edan Alexander, a 21-year-old soldier in the Israeli army. He was taken from his base on the border with Gaza in southern Israel during the Hamas terror attack. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office called the offer, quote, manipulation and psychological warfare. Israel says it wants to extend the ceasefire's temporary first phase. The proposal was backed by U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff. Hamas says it will resume freeing hostages only under the second phase. Netanyahu said he would convene with his cabinet on Saturday night to discuss the hostage situation and to decide on next steps. A tariff war might be brewing between the U.S. and Europe. The EU is set to increase tariffs on U.S. whiskey by up to 50% starting April 1st. And President Trump has threatened a 200% tariff on EU alcoholic products in return. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
President Trump has threatened a 200% tariff on wine, champagne and other alcoholic products from France and other EU countries. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said this comes in response to the EU imposing a, quote, nasty 50% tariff on whiskey. This latest escalation in trade tensions follows the EU's decision to impose countermeasures on U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs. The new tariffs, targeting $28 billion worth of U.S. goods, will take effect in stages starting in April. According to Christophe Bou, secretary of wine unions in South France, the new tariff is yet another blow for wine producers.
If we add all the issues we have been encountering lately, these new tariffs come on top of climatic hazards, a slowing economy, the geopolitical context, and the drop in our customers' purchasing power. This will put us in an even worse position.
He hopes both Europe and the US will reconsider their decisions.
The U.S. is a mature market for wine, meaning consumers are familiar with the diversity of our production. These are mid-range to high-end products with significant added value, so we are in a tug-of-war, and the consequences on both sides could be severe.
Analysts warn that these trade disputes could further destabilize global markets and increase the risk of a recession in Europe. The potential tariffs have already impacted financial markets, with shares in major European beverage companies declining. One trader from one of those companies told me yesterday off the record that if Trump's 200% tariffs were implemented, it would be a fatal blow to the high-end French alcohol market, particularly for cognac and champagne, which rely heavily on exports. One reason for this is that these alcohol producers are already facing tariffs from China due to the EU-China trade war, and they had been counting on the US market to sell their products. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Up next, Shen Yun Performing Arts graces the stage at the Von Braun Center Concert Hall in Huntsville, Alabama. Theater goers were delighted by the company's artistry, but what else did they have to say? Stay tuned for that after this break.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return. Shen Yun.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor and help save even more lives. Thank you.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Everyone deserves to live a full life. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Welcome back to Newsroom. A display of 5 millennia of Chinese civilization before communism. Shen Yun Performing Arts graced the stage at the Von Braun Center Concert Hall in Huntsville, Alabama on March 13th. Audience members shared their reflections on the show, which NTD helped sponsor. Take a look.
Shen Yun Performing Arts successfully concluded its performance at the Von Braun Center Concert Hall in Huntsville, Alabama on March 13th. Theatergoers were delighted by the company's artistry and say they felt a sense of tranquility during the performance.
It was very peaceful,
The music was wonderful. The performance and the abilities of the performers were just outstanding. The stories were really, really good.
It's amazing performance. I had no idea what to expect, and the way they do the graphics and the scenery and going in and out to looks like it's just live. So it's amazing what they do.
I very much enjoyed the music, and I'm not sure I've seen some of the instruments that were used tonight. That was a treat.
Shen Yun draws inspiration from China's 5,000 years of culture and values, which were believed to be inspired by the divine. A culture the Chinese Communist Party has tried to uproot since taking power in 1949. The efforts of the performers were highly appreciated and applauded by the audience members.
I think that's horrible that that's happened, but I'm glad that they're doing good work to revive it. It's amazing how the music and the dance kind of brings out the spirituality. It's a very deep and fulfilling and moving experience.
The touching part is that we are connecting with something that's bigger than us, with God, with something that's beyond us, that's something that's eternal. And we want to believe, we want to hope.
This show definitely communicates to a lot of us that have never been to Asia, never been to China, what it's truly all about. Not taking a look at what is in China today. Not looking at what China today, but China in the past, in history, the traditions, the real China. I would encourage continue on because I know that the program receives a lot of challenges from external forces that would not want you to do this, and I would just say keep on doing it because it is good, it is strong, it's very positive.
Shen Yun will be performing at the BJCC Concert Hall in Birmingham, Alabama on March 15th and 16th. NTD News, Huntsville, Alabama.
Soon, President Trump will be speaking at the Department of Justice on law and order. We'll have much more in the next hour. Stay tuned.
At Mathis Home, we understand that your home is a reflection of you. And during our spring style event, we have fresh new looks that are waiting to make your home look and feel great at the lowest prices. And with all the latest styles in bloom, you'll find savings in every department. Whether it's a clean and modern sectional or a rustic and traditional dining table, we have it in stock with fast and free delivery. Come find the look that's right for you at our spring style event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
What if kids in America didn't have to go to bed hungry tonight? What if our moms, dads, and grandparents could put healthy food on the table every day to help us grow strong? What if all of our friends and neighbors had fresh food too, and there was no hunger at all in America? And what if there was a way today for you to help? Call now or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. So many of us don't have enough food to eat, but your monthly gift means families across the country and in your community can fill plates with food. Kids can get healthy meals year-round, even when school's out, and our neighbors can have fresh food. Food that moms, dads, entire families need to thrive. But right now, more people are facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. It takes all of us to make that happen. Will you help too? Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give just $19 a month, and we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag. It's our way of saying thank you for helping to end hunger for our neighbors. Because no kid, no mom or dad, nobody should go hungry in America. Nobody. So what if today was the day you could help nourish futures for our friends, our families, for all of us? Ending hunger is possible. What if we end it together? Call or give online today at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can be doubled. Thank you.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. So if you want to talk to your kids, you have to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Let's go.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. In just a moment, President Donald Trump will be speaking at the Department of Justice on law and order. We'll bring that to you. And after meeting for multiple days, G7 foreign ministers come out with a joint statement. What Secretary of State Marco Rubio says about addressing Russia and the dangers posed by China. The government funding bill is in the Senate now. Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi is calling for Democratic senators to reject the bill, while Senator Schumer is supporting it. The Department of Homeland Security arrests another Columbia student linked to Israel-Hamas war protests at the university. Secretary of State Marco Rubio expects more visas to be pulled. A powerful storm system will strengthen as it moves across the central U.S. Today, bringing severe weather to millions, including the threat of strong tornadoes. A tariff war is brewing. Trump announces a 200% tariff on wine, champagne, and other EU alcoholic products, citing EU tariffs on U.S. whiskey. NTD talks with the secretary of a wine union in southern France.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Starting off this hour, taking a look at the Senate, which is expected to vote on a stopgap bill to avert a government shutdown. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez joins us now live from the Capitol with the latest on this. Luis, first of all, how exactly did we end up having a funding battle in the middle of March, which is 5 months into the fiscal year?
Of course, Fiona. Well, as you just mentioned, lawmakers were supposed to pass government funding for the fiscal year 2025 by the end of September of last year. But an impasse, and let's remember, last year we had Republicans controlling the House and Democrats controlling the Senate. They couldn't reach a consensus. They passed a continuing resolution, so extended the levels of funding from 2024 till the end of December, where they were supposed to meet again and decide whether to pass a full year stopgap bill or punt it forward into the future. And we had to see President Donald Trump back in December of 2024 call lawmakers on the House and Senate floor so they could pass a continuing resolution. And that brings us back to today, March 14th. House Republicans have already passed their version of a continuing resolution, and now it's up to the Senate to decide whether or not to pick this up. If the Senate does not pass the House's version of the continuing resolution by midnight tonight, the government will go into a shutdown. And that's because the House is out of session. So any modifications that the Senate does to the House's version of the continuing resolution would have to be sent back to the House, which, as I just said, is not in session, Fiona.
Louise, what more can you tell us about how Democrats and Republicans have approached this crucial vote?
Of course, well, for Republicans, it was pretty straightforward. They control the House, they control the Senate, and this time around, they managed, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, managed to put forth a bill that actually reduced government spending by $13 billion in non-defense spending and increased defense spending by $6 billion. Speaker Johnson managed to whip all of House Republicans to vote in favor of the bills. All of House Democrats except one, Jared Golden, voted against the bill, but it passed with the majority, the Republican majority in the House. Now, Senate Republicans have a little option. They want to back up the plan that the House has sent and keep the government running, and they've always been of the opinion that Democrats would, at the end of the day, cave to the Republican proposal. Let's listen to what Senator John Cornyn had to say about this.
Talking about people who have been railing against
Elon Musk and the Trump administration over reductions in force of the federal employees, and now they basically want to put all of them out of work by shutting down the government. So that seems to be, I don't know how you reconcile those two positions.
Side a little bit more complicated. Initially, we had heard Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer on Wednesday night say that Republicans did not have the votes in the Senate to pass this continuing resolution. But just Thursday night, a day after, Senator Chuck Schumer took to the Senate floor and explained that he was going to support the continuing resolution. Let's listen to what he had to say this Friday morning to explain his reasoning for supporting the CR. Let's listen.
Clearly, this is a Hobson's choice. The CR is a bad bill. But as bad as the CR is, I believe allowing Donald Trump to take even much more power via a government shutdown is a far worse option.
We have different analyses of this moment, but actually this is critical, that we show that there is a force in America. We have power in the Senate. People want to see us use it, and we need to push back, and we need to have all of these bad things that he's doing right now, not give our stamp of approval to it.
They can yell and fundraise off of that, but I'll be the only Democrat that's going to tell America the truth about shutting the government down, and that would be a f***ing disaster.
So as we can see there, different opinions coming from Senate Democrats. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer supporting the CR, Senator Merkley against it. And then, of course, we have moderate senators like John Fetterman calling on the Democratic Conference to vote for continuing to have the government open. We're going to see later this evening a cloture vote, and that will be the first test to see if Democrats jump in on board with Republicans to then have a full-on debate and a final vote on the passage of a continuing resolution to fund government through fiscal year 2025.
All right, Luis Martinez, thank you. Moving on now, the Department of Homeland Security has arrested a second Columbia student linked to Israel-Hamas war protests at the university. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters to expect his department to revoke more visas in the coming days. DHS arrested Leka Korda for allegedly overstaying her visa, which expired in January of 2022. Homeland Security says Korda is a Palestinian from the West Bank who was arrested in 2024 for her involvement in the protests. Korda's arrest comes a week after Columbia protester Mahmoud Khalil was taken into custody for his involvement in the demonstrations. Meanwhile, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said another individual linked to the Columbia protests has left the U.S. voluntarily. Noem posted video footage that appeared to show the person at an airport departure gate. The Department of Education said its Office for Civil Rights is investigating 45 universities. The department cites complaints that the schools engaged with a controversial program. Allegations are that the universities partnered with a program that seeks to increase diversity in college business schools. The department said in a statement the activities violated a 1964 civil rights law. Now, that law was originally passed to reduce discrimination against non-white Americans. President Trump and many conservatives have argued that efforts to increase diversity are unfair and actually discriminate against white Americans. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said, quote, "Today's announcement expands our efforts to ensure universities are not discriminating against their students based on race and race stereotypes." FBI Director Kash Patel announced a crackdown on swatting incidents targeting media figures. Swatting is when false claims are made to law enforcement so that police or other responders show up with a large presence at someone's address, only to find that there is no real emergency. Patel said there has been an alarming rise in the number of swatting incidents targeting media figures. He posted on X, quote, "Weaponizing law enforcement against any American is not only morally reprehensible, but also endangers lives, including those of our officers. That will not be tolerated." Patel said the FBI is already investigating cases of swatting and will work with local law enforcement to hold those responsible to account. After meeting for multiple days, G7 foreign ministers come out with a joint statement now, focused heavily on Russia and Ukraine. The diplomats warn Moscow to agree to a ceasefire or face further sanctions, such as oil price caps. Secretary of State Marco Rubio commented on the possibility of sanctions after today's meeting.
As far as U.S. sanctions are concerned, the president's made clear, the president on 2 occasions in the past week has reminded everybody that the U.S. has these options available to it, but he doesn't want to do that right now because he's in the hopes of attracting people, both sides, to a process where we can negotiate peace.
Another topic included in today's joint statement is the Middle East. Washington wanted to make changes in the language regarding Gaza and the Middle East. The final draft of the statement made no mention of a 2-state solution, which had been included before. The U.S. also asked for the statement to include tougher wording on China.
The Chinese Communist Party has pursued both economic and foreign policies that allow them to benefit from all the good things about the global order, but ignore all of its responsibilities in ways that leave us in danger of being, not just us, but the broader world, of being overly dependent on China for critical supply chains, for rare earth minerals, for key technologies.
President Trump says U.S. officials had a good and productive discussion with Russian officials. This comes after President Vladimir Putin yesterday said he still had questions regarding a ceasefire in Ukraine. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazar reports.
Special envoy to Russia and Ukraine Steve Witkoff was in Moscow on Thursday. He presented a U.S. proposal for a ceasefire in Ukraine. On Friday, President Trump said, "We had very good and productive discussions with President Vladimir Putin of Russia, and that there is a very good chance that this horrible, bloody war can finally come to an end." Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Friday saying Trump will now examine the Russian position more closely.
Suffice it to say, I think there is reason to be cautiously optimistic, but by the same token, we continue to recognize this is a difficult and complex situation.
On Thursday, Putin publicly said he still has questions regarding the truce. For example, if it would allow Ukraine to regroup its soldiers and supply more weapons. Russia now says Witkoff received more information in addition to the questions Putin raised.
Witkoff was received by President Putin. Additional information was provided to the Russian side. And also, in fact, through Witkoff, Putin conveyed information and additional signals to President Trump.
Ukraine already accepted the proposed 30-day ceasefire earlier this week. But Putin also questions who'd enforce the truce along the 1,200 miles long front line. The Ukrainian side commented on that on Friday.
We have already begun to form a national team that will develop appropriate procedures to properly monitor a possible ceasefire.
Putin says he'd like to have a phone call with President Trump to talk about the details of the truce. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
China and Russia stood by Iran today after the United States requested nuclear talks with Tehran. Senior Chinese and Russian diplomats said all sanctions should be lifted. In a 2015 deal with several countries, Iran agreed to curb its nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of international sanctions. But in the first Trump administration, the U.S. pulled out of that pact over a distrust of Iran's intentions. The U.S. entered the pact again during the Biden administration. Russia currently leads the world in nuclear weapons, just ahead of the U.S. China comes in a distant third. But there is debate on how soon China could catch up in its nuclear program and the danger it presents. President Trump downplayed the Iran-China-Russia meeting yesterday. Here is what he had to say.
Well, maybe they're going to talk about non-nuclear programs. Maybe they're going to be talking about the de-escalation of nuclear weapons. I think I would have made a deal with Putin on de-escalation, denuclearization, as they say. But we would have de-escalated nuclear weapons because the power of nuclear weapons is so great and so devastating. And right now, Russia and us have by far the most, but China will catch us within 5 years. China doesn't have, but they're in the process of building, and they build.
The Hamas terror group said today that it accepted a proposal to release the last living American-Israeli hostage and the bodies of 4 other hostages who died in captivity. That is, though, if Israel begins the next phase of ceasefire talks towards a permanent end to the war. Israel, meanwhile, dismissed that offer. Hamas offered to release New Jersey native Idan Alexander, a 21-year-old soldier in the Israeli army. He was taken from his base on the border with Gaza in southern Israel during the Hamas terror attack. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office called the offer, quote, manipulation and psychological warfare. Israel says it wants to extend the ceasefire's temporary first phase. The proposal was backed by U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff. Hamas says it will resume freeing hostages only under the second phase. Netanyahu said he would convene with his cabinet on Saturday night to discuss the hostage situation and decide on the next steps. The Trump administration has asked the Pentagon to provide credible military options to ensure the U.S. has unfettered access to the Panama Canal. It's one of several directives outlined in a new memo obtained by CNN that was sent to senior Pentagon leaders. President Trump has repeatedly insisted the U.S. needs to reclaim the Panama Canal. The memo also instructs the Pentagon to seal the borders by repelling what it calls unlawful mass migration, narcotics trafficking, human smuggling, and other criminal activities. It also signals a clear intent to reduce military presence in Europe and limit assistance to Ukraine. An ex-central banker, Mark Carney, has been officially sworn in as Prime Minister of Canada today. Carney cruised to victory on Sunday in a race to become leader of the ruling Liberal Party, and he has now replaced Justin Trudeau, who spent more than 9 years in office.
We respect the United States. We respect President Trump. President Trump has put some very important issues at the top of his agenda. We understand his agenda. We understand the importance of addressing the scourge of fentanyl, which is a challenge here in Canada as well as the United States. And I would say that the measures that have been put in place in recent weeks in Canada and Mexico, also the United States, means that we are making tremendous progress. I'll speak specifically for against fentanyl. We understand the importance President Trump places on American workers and American jobs. We want him and his administration to understand the importance we put on Canadian workers and Canadian jobs. And we will look for avenues to work together so that both objectives are met in terms of both our great economies, just as we are doing, and the people behind me have led this, just as we are doing with respect to the scourge of fentanyl.
Carney is a former head of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. Now, Carney argued that his position as an outsider with a history of tackling crises meant that he was the best person to take on President Trump. Trump has repeatedly talked about Canada becoming the 51st state of the U.S. On Wednesday, Carney told reporters that he was ready to meet Trump when, quote, there is respect for Canadian sovereignty. He also said he would keep in place retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods until the United States showed Canada some respect. Coming up next, President Trump is expected to speak at the Department of Justice very soon. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance visits Michigan to tout Trump's tariff policies. And a powerful storm system will strengthen as it moves across the central U.S. today, bringing severe weather to millions, including the threat of strong tornadoes. That and more after the break.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time, get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes. Good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Thanks for staying with us. Vice President J.D. Vance spoke at Vantage Plastics during a tour today with Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler. Vance used the Michigan visit as an opportunity to tout the administration's tariff policies. Here's more on what the vice president had to say.
You hear people saying, well, how dare Donald Trump impose tariffs on foreign countries that have been taking advantage of us for 40 years? And the answer is that unless you're willing to use American power to fight back against what those countries have been doing for a generation, you are never going to rebuild American manufacturing, and you're never going to support the American worker.
Vance said the Trump administration would deliver on its promise to, quote, once again make the U.S. the world's manufacturing superpower. Vance also criticized the Biden administration for failing to rein in persistent inflation and the national debt. Vance added that Trump's goal of restoring American manufacturing would be an arduous task, but the vice president said he remains optimistic. The Trump administration today is expected to move ahead with a second wave of layoffs and budget cuts. Agencies had until yesterday to submit downsizing plans. The new round of layoffs comes amid President Trump's push to reduce the federal bureaucracy. So far, DOJ has overseen potential cuts of more than 100,000 jobs across the 2.3 million member federal civilian workforce. Thousands of programs and contracts deemed wasteful or counter to the administration's aims have also been canceled. The prospect for further job losses comes with financial markets rattled by tariffs and potential recession fears. 12 people were hospitalized after an American Airlines plane caught fire at Denver International Airport yesterday. The airport says all people taken to the hospital had minor injuries, thankfully. Now, the Federal Aviation Administration said the flight took off from Colorado Springs and was diverted to Denver after the crew reported engine vibrations. According to recordings, a pilot told air traffic control the plane was cruising slower than normal. The FAA said an engine on the Boeing 737-800 caught fire while taxiing to the gate. Passengers evacuated using inflatable slides. Eyewitness videos show the heart-stopping moment the plane's engine was engulfed in flames. American Airlines said all 172 passengers and 6 crew members were taken to the terminal. A powerful storm system is set to impact a vast portion of the United States this weekend, placing over 100 million people at risk. NTD's Christina Corona tells us which areas will be affected.
Beginning Friday, severe thunderstorms in the Midwest and South are expected to produce hurricane-force winds, large hail, and strong tornadoes, especially across the Mississippi Valley. The National Weather Service issued warnings for areas including St. Louis and central Illinois, with possible damaging wind gusts up to 80 to 90 miles per hour and baseball-sized hail. Regions including St. Louis, Springfield, Illinois, southeast Iowa, and parts of western Tennessee and Kentucky are under a moderate risk for severe weather, which is classified as level 4 out of 5 on the Storm Prediction Center's threat scale, while regions from Louisiana to Ohio and Wisconsin could also see storm activity. Over 6 million people from western Illinois to northern Mississippi, including St. Louis and Memphis, are at risk for tornadoes, and the threat stretches even farther, with the possibility of strong tornadoes from southern Mississippi and Alabama to northern Illinois and Iowa Iowa late Friday. The Storm Prediction Center forecasts that by Saturday, the storm will move eastward, bringing intense thunderstorms from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes, with cities like New Orleans, Birmingham, and Atlanta facing a moderate risk. By Sunday, the severe weather threat is projected to extend along the East Coast, possibly affecting the Interstate 95 corridor. Christina Corona, NTD News.
An update now on the recent deaths of actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa. Gene Hackman's estate wants to block the public release of autopsy and investigative reports, especially photographs and police body cam video. The couple's partially mummified bodies were discovered at their New Mexico home last month. Authorities last week announced Hackman died at the age of 95 of heart disease with complications from Alzheimer's. His death came more than a week after a rare rodent-borne disease took the life of his 65-year-old wife. Hackman's pacemaker last showed signs of activity on February 18th, indicating an abnormal heart rhythm on the day he likely died. The couple's bodies were not discovered until February 26th. When we come back, a tariff war is brewing. Trump announces a 200% tariff on wine, champagne, and other EU alcoholic products, citing EU tariffs on U.S. whiskey. NTD speaks to the secretary of a wine union in southern France after the break.
Hi, Mike Huckabee here. Having spent many years in politics, I can comfortably say that the current climate is enough to keep any of us awake at night. And I safeguard my well-being by making sure that I get a good night's rest with Relaxium Sleep, America's #1 trusted sleep aid.
I'm Dr. Eric Siliberti, founder of Relaxium, America's most trusted sleep aid.
Just like you're seeing me on television now, I saw a commercial for Relaxium Sleep back then. I called, and the rest is history.
When I take Relaxium Sleep, I sleep better than I have in years.
I wake up feeling like I've had the best night's sleep.
As a clinical neurologist, I know how essential sleep is for building and nourishing both your mental and physical health.
Relaxium Sleep is made in the USA, has no risk of dependency, and is drug-free. It's also the only sleep aid with Valarest as part of its triple action formula.
I developed Relaxium to help my patients fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up refreshed.
Relaxium Sleep worked from the very first night I took it.
You've got to try Relaxium Sleep for yourself, because once you do, you'll be a customer for life, just like me. And right now, you can try it for free.
For nearly 2 decades now, Relaxium Sleep has been changing millions of lives.
Take Relaxium Sleep. I promise you it'll work.
If you're experiencing sleepless nights or tossing and turning, you need to try Relaxium Sleep now.
I trust Relaxium Sleep, and so should you. Get the best night of sleep guaranteed. Don't wait another minute. Call now.
Mike Huckabee is so confident that Relaxium Sleep will work for you, he's asked us to give away another 1,000 bottles. Get your free bottle of Relaxium Sleep now.
Visit tryrelaxium.com or call 800-418-1606. That's tryrelaxium.com or call 800-418-1606.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Welcome back to Newsroom. A tariff war might now be brewing between the U.S. and Europe. The EU is set to increase tariffs on U.S. whiskey by up to 50% starting April 1st. And President Trump has threatened a 200% tariff on EU alcoholic products in return. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
President Trump has threatened a 200% tariff on wine, champagne, and other alcoholic products from France and other EU countries. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said this comes in response to the EU imposing a, quote, nasty 50% tariff on whiskey. This latest escalation in trade tensions follows the EU's decision to impose countermeasures on U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs. The new tariffs, targeting $28 billion worth of U.S. goods, will take effect in stages starting in April. According to Christophe Bou, secretary of wine unions in South France, the new tariff is yet another blow for wine producers.
If we add all the issues we have been encountering lately, these new tariffs come on top of climatic hazards, a slowing economy, the geopolitical context, and the drop in our customers' purchasing power. This will put us in an even worse position.
He hopes both Europe and the U.S. will reconsider their decisions.
The U.S. is a mature market for wine, meaning consumers are familiar with the diversity of our production. These are mid-range to high-end products with significant added value, so we are in a tug-of-war, and the consequences on both sides could be severe.
Analysts warn that these trade disputes could further destabilize global markets and increase the risk of a recession in Europe. The potential tariffs have already impacted financial markets, with shares in major European beverage companies declining. One trader from one of those companies told me yesterday off the record that if Trump's 200% tariffs were implemented, it would be a fatal blow to the high-end French alcohol market, particularly for cognac and champagne, which rely heavily on exports. One reason for this is that these alcohol producers are already facing tariffs from China due to the EU-China trade war, and they had been counting on the US market to sell their products. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
G7 nations call for a ceasefire with no conditions to halt the fighting in Ukraine. Britain's foreign minister said a pause in fighting would be the first step for talks to fully end the war. But should Russia refuse, the G7 agreed Russia would face further economic sanctions. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has the story.
British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said it would be wrong for Russia to place conditions on a ceasefire with Ukraine. It comes as President Trump on Friday said the US had very good and productive discussions with the Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Speaking after meeting his G7 counterparts in Canada,
Ukraine has set their position out. It is now for Russia to accept it. I think that there is a coalition of the willing emerging to give Ukraine the security architecture and arrangements that they need, and to get into the detail of any monitoring of that ceasefire going forward.
Earlier in the day, Lammy said a pause in the fighting is the first step towards allowing talks to start a full settlement to end the war. Kiev has agreed to the US proposal for a 30-day ceasefire in the war. On Thursday, Putin said he agrees with it in principle, but set out a host of details that need to be clarified before he accepts it. Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said there is strong unity among G7 partners on Ukraine.
All G7 foreign ministers agree with the US proposal of a ceasefire that is supported by Ukrainians, and we are now studying and looking at the Russian reaction. So ultimately, the ball is now in Russia's court.
Trump said it would be very disappointing for Moscow to reject the ceasefire proposal. The British government welcomed Trump's threat to suffocate Russia's economy if they refused to cooperate in peace talks. If Putin refuses, the G7 nations agreed on Friday that Russia would face further sanctions, including oil price caps. Running alongside efforts to broker a ceasefire are discussions among the so-called coalition of the willing on how best to help Ukraine deter future Russian aggression in the event of a peace deal. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will convene a summit of European and Commonwealth nations on Saturday. They are due to consider support options, which he has said could include deploying British peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
President Donald Trump is now at the Justice Department. He is ready to give remarks on law and order. Attorney General Pam Bondi is introducing him. Let's tune in.
We also have two angel moms here today. Anne lost her son. He was 15. He thought he was taking a Percocet at school, and it was laced with fentanyl. And he was beautiful. And I'm so sorry. But all of these people in this room, thanks to the directive of Donald Trump, are going to keep our streets safe and protect our kids. Thank you for being here. And Tammy's beautiful daughter, Kayla, was murdered violently by an illegal alien from El Salvador who should not have been in our country. And thanks to Donald Trump, they will all be deported very soon, thanks to his work, Homeland Security. And I say the unsung hero, Stephen Miller. On stage, we have, this is 180 kilograms. It represents, not real, of fentanyl, okay? So this represents 1 kilo of fentanyl. In its pure form, this 1 kilo can kill 500,000 people. The 180 there, in pure form, could kill 90 million people. That is the population of California, Texas, and Florida. That's what we're dealing with in our country. That's why angel moms go around the country. That's why Donald Trump has taken such a hard stance against cartels, securing our borders, getting these gangs and drugs out of our country. But look at that. That can kill 3 states in its pure form. That should terrify everyone. I see our senators made it. Did our senators? Thank you. However, taking the drugs off the streets is only half the battle. President Trump has secured our borders and will continue to fight the cartels throughout this country, deport them all, or lock them up for the rest of their lives, thanks to our prosecutors around this country where they belong. Under the last administration, cartels, criminals, they freely walked in and out of our country with impunity. No longer. Under Donald Trump, they live in fear, and they better live in fear because we're coming after all of them. I am so proud to have a team with Emil and Todd and all of our great team. And we all work for the greatest president in the history of our country. We are so proud to work at the directive of Donald Trump. It is, he will never stop fighting for us, and we will never stop fighting for him and for our country. It is an honor to welcome to the Department of Justice the 45th and the 42nd President of the United States.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Pam, very much. What a job you're doing. And it's a true honor to be with you today. This is a storied hall, if there ever was one. And based on the crowd, I think we broke the all-time record. But as we begin a proud new chapter in the chronicles of American justice, this really is something. We're turning the page on 4 long years of corruption, weaponization, and surrender to violent criminals, and we're restoring fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And you're the people that are doing it. Very, very proud of all of you. Under the Trump administration, the DOJ and the FBI will once again become the premier crime-fighting agencies on the face of the earth. People ask me, what am I going to do about law enforcement all the time? The fake news back there, they're asking me that all the time. What am I going to do? And when are you going to do it? And I answer them by saying I've already done most of it by appointing the people that I've appointed. They're sitting right here. They've done most of it. I don't do it, they do it. Right, Pam? I think Oh, you are so tough, they just don't know yet. Let me begin by congratulating the incredible people who will lead these historic reforms. And we start with somebody that you just saw, Pam Bondi. She's extraordinary, and I've known her very well for a long time. I watched her for a long time in Florida, for years in Florida, and highly experienced. She seems so young, but she's highly experienced, that I can tell you. She was a phenomenal attorney general in Florida, and she's going to do a really amazing job. Also, our new director of the FBI, Kash Patel. Kash, right. A man that I'm very proud of. I've known him and Emil for a long time under tremendous pressure. I saw these guys under some of the most corrupt judges. It's not even imaginable how corrupt they were. And these guys never wilted. They were not shy. They fought. They weren't afraid, and they were brilliant. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Principal Associate Deputy Attorney Emil Beauvais. And thank you both very much. Right. Great people. They're great people. The Chief of Staff, who's so highly respected, Chad Mizell. Thank you, Chad. Chad? Thank you, Chad. Our next administrator of the DEA, Terry Cole. Terry? Thank you, Terry. Good luck. Going to do great. Senior counsel to the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Boy, I've been watching him on television last couple of weeks. He is really a tough one, and he's a great one. Leo Terrell, you watch how good he's going to be. He's going to be so good. Thank you, Leo. Great guy. Assistant Attorney General of the Antitrust Division, who's got an incredible reputation. She'll do very, very well. Gail Slater. Thank you, Gail. Good luck. Great job. Now, we're joined by many, many great friends and terrific friends, and I won't be able to, too many to name, but some that I just see very quickly. General Flynn, thank you for being here. There's a man who went through hell, by the way, and he shouldn't have. He's a patriot. He went through hell. We're also pleased to be joined by Senator Chuck Grassley and House Majority Whip. Where's Chuck? Hi, Chuck. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer. Tom, great job you're doing. Representative Guy Reschenthaler, one of the toughest names to say, but I got it perfectly, I think. And State Attorney General Ken Paxton, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Somebody who was with us early on, and she's really become a big star and very popular, Brenna Bird. Thank you, Brenna. Thank you very much. Steve Marshall, Alan Wilson, James Othermeyer, Chris Carr, Dave Sunday, Marty Jackley, as well as White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller. What a man Stephen is. Become a big star. Right, Emil? Steve Miller. Steve has been something very special. For generations, the Federal Department of Justice was one of America's most revered institutions. The men and women of the DOJ brought down the mafia, hunted down the killers, kingpins, and spies, tracked down terrorists and traitors, and tore down corrupt political machines all across America. This department commanded the respect and admiration of the entire world. And with Pam and Kash and all of the people I introduced and far more, big numbers, and all of you sitting back there, I recognize so many of you. But with you leading the way, it'll soon be the most admired and most respected of all. You're going to be more respected, and I really believe that there's also a lot of things to solve, a lot of problems to solve. But that's going to put you in the upper tier and maybe the top tier, and I believe that's going to happen. I'm so proud of the people in this room. But first, we must be honest about the lies and abuses that have occurred within these walls. Unfortunately, in recent years, a corrupt group of hacks and radicals within the ranks of the American government obliterated the trust and goodwill built up over generations. They weaponized the vast powers of our intelligence and law enforcement agencies to try and thwart the will of the American people. You remember the 51 intelligence agents that said, as an example, that Hunter Biden's laptop from hell came from Russia when they knew it came right from his bedroom. They knew that. It was a big lie, and they knew it so well. They spied on my campaign, launched one hoax and disinformation operation after another, broke the law on a colossal scale, persecuted my family, staff, and supporters, raided my home, Mar-a-Lago, and did everything within their power to prevent me from becoming the President of the United States. With the help of radicals like Mark Elias, Mark Pomerantz, and these are people that nobody's ever seen anything like it. So many others, but these are people that are bad people, really bad people. They tried to turn America into a corrupt, communist, and third world country. But in the end, the thugs failed and the truth won. Freedom won, justice won, democracy won, and above all, the American people won. There could be no more heinous betrayal of American values than to use the law to terrorize the innocent and reward the wicked. And that's what they were doing at a level that's never been seen before. And it's exactly what you saw with Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, and their cronies to do the building of the last 4 years. What they've ripped down is incalculable. But what you're going to build up is likewise something that will be breaking all sorts of records. They set loose violent criminals while targeting patriotic parents at school board meetings. They dropped charges against Antifa and Hamas supporters while labeling traditional Catholics as domestic terrorists. The Catholics, we did very well with the Catholic vote, so I want to thank them for that. They really did, record numbers. I would say, what's with the Catholics? They're really after the Catholics, so I don't know. They were after a lot of people. Maybe they didn't even know why. They imported illegal alien murderers, drug dealers, and child predators from all over the world to come into our country while putting elderly Christians and pro-life activists on trial for singing hymns and for saying prayers. They went to jail for that. Our predecessors turned this Department of Justice into the Department of Injustice. But I stand before you today to declare that those days are over, and they are never going to come back. They're never coming back. So now, as the chief law enforcement officer in our country, I will insist upon and demand full and complete accountability for the wrongs and abuses that have occurred. The American people have given us a mandate like few people thought possible. We won every single swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of people. We won districts, 2,750. Think of that, 2,750 districts compared to 505. So we won it at levels that have, I don't believe, ever seen before. That's the one where you see the map of the United States and it's all red. Red for Republican, not for communist. Red for Republican. They would like it to turn red for communist, but it didn't work out that way. The American people have given us a mandate and really just a far-reaching investigation is what they are demanding into the corruption of our system. And that's exactly, I'm sure, what Pam and Cash and everyone else mentioned here and not mentioned is going to be doing. We will expel the rogue actors and corrupt forces from our government. We will expose and very much expose their egregious crimes and severe misconduct, of which was levels you've never seen anything like it. It's going to be legendary. It's going to also be legendary for the people that are able to seek it out and bring justice. We will restore the scales of justice in America, and we will ensure that such abuses never happen again in our country. And that's why on day one, I signed an executive order banning all government censorship and directing the removal of every bureaucrat who conspired to attack free speech and many other things and values in America. My administration stripped the security clearances of the disgraced intelligence agents who lied about Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. We revoked the clearances of deranged Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, and the crooked law firms that aided their partisan persecutions. And I went through it. These are state and city courts, and the corruption is unbelievable. We also terminated the clearances of the Biden crime family and Joe Biden himself. He didn't deserve it. In fact, he was essentially found guilty, but they said he was incompetent, and therefore let's not find him guilty, I guess. Nobody knows what that ruling was, but I didn't want any part of it. I think I would have rather been found guilty than what they found with him. They said he didn't know what the hell he was doing, and therefore he's let him go. I said, you know, I'd rather be convicted, Pam, I think, than that. That was not good. I said, please convict me, don't say that. I pardoned hundreds of political prisoners who had been grossly mistreated. We removed the senior FBI officials who misdirected resources to send SWAT teams after grandmothers and J6 hostages. And it was a great honor for me to fire, I will tell you this, a great honor to fire James Comey. A great, great honor. That was nothing. There was no better day. A lot of people said, oh, that's too bad you did that. And they said, that's going to be, and you know what? A year later, they said, that actually saved the administration because the level of corrupt things that we learned after that turned out to be that they were doing, in fact, really bad things. He was a terrible person, did terrible things and persecuted people, and all in the guise of being an angel, but he wasn't an angel. We created a brand new DOJ task force and anti-Christian bias. And under Director Patel, we're getting the FBI agents out of the headquarters in Washington, D.C., and back on the streets in pursuit of dangerous criminals where they belong and where they want to be. And, you know, you have that big FBI building, and it's a very big building, and they were going to build an FBI headquarters 3 hours away in Maryland, a liberal state, but that has no bearing on what I'm about to say, but we're going to stop it. Not going to let that happen. We're going to build another big FBI building right where it is, which would have been the right place because the FBI and the DOJ have to be near each other. You can't that's one thing I did learn from this persecution. The FBI and the DOJ work together. Now, in my case, they work together for bad purposes, but they do. They were always together. So how can you have one that's 3 hours away? But one thing I said to Cash, well, we're going to get a great building built. It's going to be a magnificent building. He said, sir, we don't need that kind of room. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm just going to take a old Department of Commerce building that's about 25% the size, and that's what I need. We're going to have the best staff that you've ever seen, and that's what I need. It's in a nice location, but I don't need that big building. Why don't you just sell the site to somebody, and we're going to be very happy. And they want to have far fewer people, but we also want to have them in D.C., and if for no other reason, we like having law enforcement walking the streets of our capital, because when the bad guys are out there and they see there's an FBI agent, that's the ultimate in law enforcement, and they're not going to be acting so bad. We're cleaning up our city. We're cleaning up this great capital, and we're not going to have crime, and we're not going to stand for crime, and we're going to take the graffiti down, and we're already taking the tents down, and we're working with the administration, and if the administration can't do the job, we're going to have to take it back and run it through the federal government. But we hope the administration is going to be able. So far, they've been doing very well. The mayor's been doing a good job. We said there are tents galore right opposite the State Department. They have to come down, and they took them down right away. And so far, so good. But we want to have a capital that can be the talk of the world. When Prime Minister Modi of India, when the President of France, and all of these people, the head of Prime Minister of United Kingdom, they all came to see me over the last week and a half. And when they come in, I had the route run. I didn't want to have them see tents. I didn't want to have them see graffiti. I didn't want to have them see broken barriers and potholes in the roads, and we had it looking beautiful. And we're going to do that for the city. And we're going to have a crime-free capital. When people come here, they're not going to be mugged or shot or raped. They're going to have a crime-free capital again. It's going to be cleaner and better and safer than it ever was, and it's not going to take us too long. There's a new phenomena that is taking place with these violent, vicious lawyers that we have all over. They play the ref. You know what playing the ref is? Like the great Bobby Knight basketball coach. He'd scream and scream at the ref. He'd scream. I watched it. By the way, I love Bobby Knight because he endorsed me. And having Bobby Knight's endorsement in Indiana was an extremely good thing. A friend of mine said I was running in Indiana at the time. This was early on, 2016. And I was doing great. But friend came up and said, "Do you know Bobby Knight?" I said, "No, I don't, but I hear he was a tough cookie." He said, not only tough, he was beyond tough, but he's the most popular guy you can imagine. It turned out he wanted to endorse me. He called me about 2 years before. He said, "Sir, I'd like to endorse you." I said, "Is this really Bobby Knight?" I said, "It's me." I could tell it was Bobby Knight. He had been known for throwing the chair across the court and slapping a player. Can't do things like that, right? And the man that came in fired him. He was a new administrator for the college. That guy didn't last very long. They were like 14-0, and they fired Coach Knight. That was not good, but he had a little chip in his shoulder. But he loved Trump, and he came in, and he said, "I'd love to endorse you." He said, "If you ever run, please call me." So he said, "Do you know Bobby Knight?" I said, "Well, I don't know him, but he called me a couple of years ago." It was an amazing phenomenon. I took his number, and on each side of my desk in New York, I had stacks of paper, like nice and neat, but about 2 feet high each. And I said, I wrote his number down and I put it here 2 years ago. And I said, let me see if I can find it. It was almost like a miracle. I had other miracles that happened too. My ear is still throbbing. That was a miracle. That was a miracle also, wasn't it? That was a miracle also. How are you? Thank you. Thank you, Leo. Thank you. Thank you, my man. That was a miracle. Anyway, okay, that's it. That's very nice, thank you. But, so he said, Bobby Knight. So I said, I put his name down and I wrote it down. It's in one of these stacks. I lifted up. There would have to be 2,000 to 3,000 pages in each stack. I lifted it up, the first one, had no idea. And there was his name on a little card, Bobby Knight with his number. It was like incredible. I tell that story all the time. And I called him and dialed a number. He said, I've been waiting for you to call. And he went out and he made a speech for me in a packed arena in Indiana, and it was over. It was over. He was a tough guy. He actually went a little far, if you remember. He made a great speech because he was actually a motivational type guy, to put it mildly. But he left the stage, and then I'm talking, and he walks back onto the stage. I said, uh-oh, this is trouble. Why is he coming back? He was a big guy, too. Why is he coming back? He said, may I say a few more words? I said, yeah, go ahead, Bobby, say a few more words, a little different. And he said, let me tell you something about this guy, Trump. This guy, if he has to, will use the nuclear weapons that we have. He will use he has no fear. He's going to use, and that's the kind of guy. And he walked off the stage. I said, I think I'm in big trouble, Pam. That was not good, but it worked out okay. In the meantime, we won the state in a landslide, and it was great, and it was just an amazing period of time. But this is the most amazing period of time. I think this is more amazing. What's taken place is more amazing. I think it's more consequential, and if we do the job, one of the big media outlets said what we did was the most consequential election in the last 129 years. Well, if we do the job that we're all capable of doing, I think it's going to prove to be that and then some, and that's what we want to do. We have a real big shot at making this country so great, so great. What happened to our country was so sad. What they've done in 4 years to our country with the borders, with Afghanistan, the most embarrassing period of time, allowing the Russian situation, it was never going to happen with Ukraine. Allowing October 7th to happen would have never happened because under me, Iran was totally broke. They had no money. They weren't giving any money to Hamas or Hezbollah. It was totally broke. But allowing inflation, look at what inflation's done to people, been so devastating. And now you see that, by the way, price of eggs is down 35% in the last week and a half. We're doing a good job. Brooke is doing a good job. Brooke Rollins and everybody. And inflation's down, interest rates are down, gasoline has come down to a level that we haven't seen in a long time. All things that we wanted to do, because then everything else is going to be coming down. We want it to come down. We want bacon to come down, and groceries, a term I used to use. It's sort of an old-fashioned term, but I used to use it on the campaign trail, those last 90 perfect, beautiful days. We just hit it. And I want to thank Susie. You have done a great job, Susie Wiles. Great job, Susie. A big magazine just named her the most powerful woman in the world, and that's okay with me. She is the most powerful woman. You think about it, John, right? The most powerful woman in the world, but she's great. And we had a great 90 days. It was a perfect 90 days, and it was a great result, but we want to put that result to good use by doing a phenomenal job. And I want to tell you that Todd and Emil know this very well. We had an amazing judge in Florida, and her name is Eileen Cannon. And I didn't know her. I still don't know her. I don't believe I ever spoke to her, even during the trial. But I did appoint her, federal judge. And these fake lawyers, these horrible human beings, were hitting her so hard, public relations-wise. They were playing the ref. I don't think it's legal. I don't think it's legal. They might as well go out and just shout it in a courthouse. They were saying she was slow, she wasn't smart, she was totally biased, she loved Trump. I didn't know her, other than I saw her the couple of days that I was in court, and I thought her decorum was amazing. Anything bad they could say, though, they were saying about her, it was whatever they could say bad about a human being, all made up, because actually she was brilliant. She moved quickly. She was the absolute model of what a judge should be, and she was strong and tough. And how do you get them to stop if you're a judge? How do you get them to stop with the playing the ref? Bobby Knight would play the ref. That's why I brought up the Bobby Knight story. He would play the ref. He'd scream at the ref. He'd scream so hard. Oh, boy, it was terrible, actually. And the people would come up, his assistant coaches would come up to play. Coach, don't do that. Don't do it. He said he's not going to change his tune, coach. He called it. He's not changing. I don't care. And he's screaming. That's when he threw the chair. He starts going crazy. And he said, no, he's not going to change this time, but he's going to change for the next play. And sure as hell he did. You know, Bobby, by the way, had the last undefeated team in basketball. And relatively speaking, you know, he had that team. He always had a team. He never had that. Well, he had a couple of great players, obviously, some top NBA players, but very few relatively. He had a team, but he won the national championship 3 times, but he had the last undefeated team in basketball. And he would play the ref, and he would scream at him. He knew exactly what he was doing. They're doing the same thing. He said, no, he's not going to change now, but he's going to change for the next one. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to scare the hell. They wanted to scare the hell out of the judges, and they do it. And how do you stop it if you're a judge? Because you want to go home, you have a family, you have children, and the New York Times will write whatever these people say, and the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, and MSDNC, and the fake news CNN, and ABC, and CBS, and NBC, and they'll write whatever they say. And what do you do to get rid of it? You convict Trump. All you have to do is be really tough on him and ultimately convict him, and they leave you alone. It's totally illegal what they do. I just hope you can all watch for it, but it's totally illegal. And it was so unfair what they were doing to her. But they do it all the time with judges. But in her case, she was very courageous, and it only made her angry. Wouldn't you say? It just made her angry. She didn't like it. A lot of them say, oh, please don't say that about me. my family. What's my husband going to say? What's my wife going to say, or my kids? Please don't say that. And it had absolutely no impact on her in the case against me, which was a case, I will not use a bad word. I promised my wife I would never use a bad word, so just a little bad. The case against me was bullshit. And she correctly dismissed it. She correctly, look at Emil, he's looking, that's interesting. But these two guys were warriors. You got a warrior here. You got two warriors, I can tell you that. You got a whole bunch of them. But, and they wouldn't quit. They wouldn't take no for an answer. They just wouldn't quit. These two people right up here, and some others that are involved with it indirectly. And what the lawyers do is they're doing it to the Supreme Court justices, hoping that they'll be overcome by the horrible things they say about them. They say things about Supreme Court justices and judges that are just horrible. They're playing the ref. Remember the way they treated Justice Thomas and Justice Alito and Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Gorsuch. Chief Justice Roberts gets treated unbelievably badly, and they're hoping that they can sway them to go along because, again, what do? They're humans. You know, like it would be wonderful if everybody was just a perfect computer machine, but they're not. They're humans, and they don't want to be accused of many, many things, including gross incompetence. They don't like it, and they don't want it. There's not much they can do about it. You know, they're in a position they can't really fight back really very well. And so what they do is sometimes they get weak. I would say a majority, maybe, of the times. That's why I'm so impressed with Judge Cannon in Florida, how strong she was, how she held up. It actually made her more resolute than anything I've seen. I mean, it was amazing because they were hitting her so hard. It was so sad to watch this. But it's sad what they do to other judges. It's very sad what they do to the Supreme Court. And a lot of the judges that I had, if you look at them, they take tremendous abuse in the New York Times and the Washington Post, all of the different networks. They take such abuse. And honestly, very simply, they're afraid of bad publicity. They don't want bad publicity. And it's truly interference, in my opinion, and it should be illegal, and it probably is illegal in some form. There's no difference than speaking to a judge or shouting to a judge or doing whatever you have to do in a courthouse. They're doing it behind the back. They're usually doing it anonymously. They're saying anonymously, off the record, the judge is no good, but everybody knows where it's coming from. And it's totally coordinated. It's a campaign, and it's by the same scum that you have been dealing with for years, like guys like Andrew Weissman, deranged Jack Smith. There's a guy named Norm Eisen. I don't even know what he looks like. His name is Norm Eisen of Crew. He's been after me for 9 years. Now, Crew is a charitable organization. And the reason I'm saying this, Todd, is I'm only going to get one chance to say this. But these are bad people. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he looks like. But everything I read is Norm Eisen of Crew. And Crew is a charitable organization. And that's a political thing. His sole life is to get Donald Trump. And he's been vicious and violent. And he's trying, and he probably had pretty good success over the years. But with me, how did he do? I think I'm president. Am I here because I'm president? But we had to take all of that abuse. Even during the trials, we had to take tremendous abuse. Like, you know, these wonderful guys, they're not legitimate people. They're horrible people. They're scum. And you have to know that. And you're going to have these cases where you can't allow yourselves to be deflected. You just can't let it happen. You have such a higher calling. And I believe that CNN and MSDNC, who literally write 97.6% bad about me, are political arms of the Democrat Party. And in my opinion, they're really corrupt and they're illegal. What they do is illegal. It makes no difference how big a victory I had. I can have the biggest victory in history. It makes no difference what kind of a failure the other side has. These people are going to go after me. And I said it during the other night, during the big speech on Tuesday night. I said about Democrats, and I don't like that. I have great respect, by the way, for what Schumer did today. He went out and he said that I'm going to have to vote with the Republicans because it's the right thing to do. I couldn't believe what I heard. But, you know, I think he's going to get some credit for it. I think, let's see what happens tonight with the big vote as it comes. But these networks and these newspapers are really no different than a highly paid political operative. And it has to stop. It has to be illegal. It's influencing judges, and it's really changing law, and it just cannot be legal. I don't believe it's legal. And they do it in total coordination with each other. And everything we do, we're restoring law, restoring order, and restoring public safety in America. That's what we want to do. And we're bringing honor and integrity and accountability back to the highest levels of the FBI, DOJ, and throughout our government. We're bringing our country back faster than anyone ever thought possible. We're working so hard at doing it, and we want fairness in the courts. The courts are a big factor. The elections, which were totally rigged, are a big factor. We have to have honest elections. We have to have borders, and we have to have courts and law that's fair. Well, we're not going to have a country. Crooked Joe Biden got us into a real mess with Russia and everything else he did, frankly, but he didn't know about it, and he, generally speaking, signed it with auto pen. So how would he know? That auto pen is a big deal. I don't know. You know, they're having who's doing this? So when my people come up, Will and all of the people, Steve, they come up and, sir, this is an executive order. They explain it to me, and, you know, 90% of the time I sign it. 99% of the time I say do it. But they come up and I sign it. But you don't use auto pen. It's number one, it's disrespectful to the office. Number two, maybe it's not even valid because, you know, who's getting him to sign? He had no idea what the hell he was doing. If he did, all of these bad things wouldn't be happening right now. But we're going to get you back into a great position, and we've already started. They say that we had the most successful first month of presidency. It's not a long time, but it's still a lot. It's like if you're a golfer, sinking a 3-foot putt on the first hole gives you confidence to sink something on the second hole. But if you miss that first putt, you don't like to have the putt on the second hole and the third hole. It could be a very bad experience. It's nice to get that first month, and now we have more than a month. Now we have a month and a half, and it's going really, really well. I can tell you as a little secret, although the cameras are blazing back there, so it's not that much. But I think we're doing well, as you have been hearing about Ukraine. I think we're doing now well with Russia. We're speaking with President Putin. We want to get the war over. Not only have we spent maybe $350 billion to Europe's, think of that, $350 billion to $100 billion, and yet we're across the ocean far away, so it shouldn't have been that way, but Biden let that happen too. And we're getting a deal where we're going to get that back, but much more importantly are the lives that we're talking about. On average, 2,000 young people are being killed every single day. Now, they're not from here. They're from nowhere close to here, but they're young people. They're human beings, and they have parents. They have sisters and brothers, the mothers and fathers, the friends and the families and the towns where they grew up. And they're losing, on average, 2,000, even 2,500 a week. And I want to get it stopped. And we've had some very good calls today with Russia and with Ukraine. They've agreed for a ceasefire if we can get it with Russia. And it's not easy. It's a tough one. But I think we're doing it. And as the Secretary General said yesterday of NATO, a terrific guy, he said without Trump, we wouldn't be talking about it. It would just go on for years, and millions more people, millions of people have been killed, but millions more people would be killed. And he said it was a great honor. Without me, it would just keep going on. We're looking for the ceasefire now with Russia, and we've had some very good talks about it. We've had some very good responses. And I can tell you that there was a case where there would have been no war if I were president. And it's just 100% would not have happened, would never have happened. I used to speak to President Putin a lot about it. I said, don't do it. Don't do it. I won't tell you what the consequence was. I won't tell you what he's, but if he believed even 5% of what I said, then he would say, I'm not going to do it. And I think he did. But we had a good relationship, and we had a professional relationship, and his respect for this country. And I think we've had some very good results. So, you know, I haven't been able to say that to anybody else. I haven't wanted to say it until just before I came here. I got some pretty good news. So, but we have to see what happens. It's still a long way to go. The fighting is unbelievable. Russia has a large group of Ukrainian soldiers, as we speak, surrounded and in grave danger. They've been able to surround them. They're in grave danger. Biden should have never let this war happen. First of all, you don't want to pick on somebody that's a lot larger than you, even with the money. There's a lot of money that we gave them and a lot of equipment. We make the best military equipment in the world, but even with all of that, it's unbelievable. Right now, you have a lot of Ukrainian soldiers that are encircled and in grave danger, and I've asked them not to kill those soldiers, please, not to kill those soldiers. We don't want them killed. It's such a shame to see what's happened. A thing like that would have never happened. Inflation would have never happened. October 7th would have never happened. Israel, Iran had no money. They were totally broke. Think of it. They had no money to give to anybody. They were totally broke. And within a short period of time, as soon as Biden came in, he took out all the sanctions. In China and everybody else that wasn't buying oil from Iran was buying it at levels that they never spent before. And it was a sad thing. And if you look at Afghanistan, that was probably what got Putin started, because when he looked at how horribly we looked, I think the most embarrassing day, not that we got out because we were getting out. I would have been out faster than them. I was the one that got it down to the right level. But we would have kept Bagram, the big Air Force base. We would have kept it. Right now, China occupies Bagram. And the reason we would have kept it is because they were 1 hour away from where China has and builds its nuclear missiles and weapons. And they gave that up. At the dark of night, they left the lights on, and they left the dogs behind, by the way. A lot of people say, what about all the dogs? They had a lot of dogs, and they left the dogs behind. And what a shame, what a shame. The way we got out, I think it was the most humiliating time in the history of our country. The way it happened, not that we were getting out because we wanted to get out, but we would have gotten out with dignity and strength. And what a difference a rigged and crooked election had on our country when you think about it. And the people who did this to us should go to jail. They should go to jail. So I just want to say God bless America, because we have to say God bless. We're lucky we're still here, frankly. And this whole thing could lead, I think we have it. But this could lead to World War III very easily. Could very easily lead to World War III, but I think we're in pretty good shape. A lot better than we were before we got involved, that I can tell you. That was heading into World War III territory, and that would have been a war like no other because of nuclear weapons and other types of weapons that, people you don't even want to know about. But as many of you do know, well, we're focused on persecuting, and these people were really focused on persecuting Republicans. The last administration presided over the worst increase in violent crime in our country in many, many decades. We had levels of violence and crime, and a lot of it had to do with the illegal immigrants that came in. Remember when I used to complain about it? Because I knew how tough they were, how mean they were. And they said, no, people that come into our country are all wonderful people. No, they're not wonderful. These are stone cold killers. These are killers they make our killers look nice by comparison. They make our killers look nice. These are rough, tough people with the tattoos all over their face. Historically speaking, I don't want to discriminate against anybody, but historically speaking, they're not going to be the head of any major bank that we know of. These are rough people. These are rough killer people, and they allowed them in by the millions. In major cities like New York, Chicago, and Washington, mothers can't walk their children to the park without fear of being shot or killed or raped or anything. Women can't ride the subway without worrying that a hoodlum will shove them onto the train tracks. in New York. It's happened twice in the last couple of weeks. They're standing there, a perfect Wall Street gentleman in one case, and another person who was a worker, good worker, electrician, gets pushed into a train going 45 miles an hour just prior to the train, not stopping, going to go through that. I know the stations very well. I used to take the subway. I used to feel safe. When I was young, I'd go to my parents would drop me off at the subway. I'd take the subway to my school. Can you believe it? Today, they wouldn't be doing that. And we want to get a country back maybe where you can do that again, Pam. But it's so sad to see what's taking place. Under the Biden regime, average monthly homicides increased by 14%. Property crime rose tremendously. Violent crime went up at least 37% that they know of. Rape soared by 42%. Car theft rose by 48%. And robberies surged to 63 to 100%. They don't even know what the number is. And I have no higher mission as President of the United States than to end this killing and stop this law-breaking and to making America safe again. And that's what you're all about in this room. We want to protect Americans, and we protect everybody that's in our country, American or not American. We want to have a safe and proud country. We're joined today by dozens of police officers, sheriffs and sheriff's deputies from all across the country. My message to these law enforcement heroes is simple. With me in the White House, you once again have a president who will always have your back, will always have your back. Thank you, fellas. Thank you. That's a lot of good-looking people. I will tell you, I feel safe. I'm glad you're in the room. I feel even safer. It's a lot of great people. On day one, I signed an executive order directing Attorney General to ensure that anyone who murders a police officer immediately, with as fast a trial as we can have, gets the death penalty. And last month, I fired all the radical left pro-crime U.S. attorneys appointed by Joe Biden. There were so many that were bad. And I know there were some that were probably very good, but there were so many that were so bad and so evil, so corrupt. Instead of having Marxist prosecutors who want to put police officers in handcuffs and go after a police officer rather than a criminal, I appointed patriotic, tough-on-crime warriors who will partner with police to put dangerous offenders behind bars, put them in jail. We're fully reviving 1033 program to provide state and local law enforcement with surplus military equipment, that we have so much of it. I did it in my last administration, and I remember Obama wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it before me, would not do it, because he thought it made them look too strong, too military. I said, no, that's what I want them to look like. I want them to look strong. And it was protective, defensive equipment. We had billions of dollars. I gave it out, and now I'm going to have a chance to give it out again. They didn't want to do it with Biden, and Biden didn't know why. I didn't, if they would have asked him, he wouldn't have been able to answer the question. He could never answer a question. They said my press conference yesterday was longer than all of Biden's press conferences put together for the last 4 years. And I don't know if that's true, but it was close. And perhaps most importantly, we're securing our border and repelling the invasion of America. We have, you see the numbers have come down. So, and Tom Homan and Christie have been incredible. Christie Noem, secretary, she's done great. And Tom Homan is, I don't know if Tom Homan's here, but wherever he may be, I think he's chasing people out of our country. If he was here, I'd almost be disappointed. What are you doing, Tom? But he's a fantastic guy, and he's a brave guy. Over the past 4 years, other countries emptied out their prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums, and sent the killers, drug smugglers, and bloodthirsty inmates from the filthiest dungeons of the world straight into the USA. An open border. We had an open border policy. Anybody could come in, no matter what you were, no matter where you came from, no matter what you looked like, no matter what you were doing, no matter what you did, no matter how many people you murdered, you could come right into our country. We have murderers right now walking the streets. We're joined today by Tammy Nobles, whose 20-year-old daughter, Kayla, was attacked in her home 3 years ago, horrifically assaulted and strangled to death by an illegal alien MS-13 monster set loose into our country under the open border Biden regime. Kayla was one of countless American victims ripped away from their families by the open border policies of that administration. And we're also joined by Kayla's stepfather, Jeremiah, and several other courageous angel families here today. And I'd love you to all just stand up and take a bow because you are incredible people. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. But I want you to know that we are working every day to expel these savages from our country and ensure that what happened to your loved ones will never happen again. So their legacy is going to be a great one. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. On day one of my administration, I declared a national emergency on our southern border. In our first full month in office, we achieved the lowest level of illegal border crossings ever recorded, okay? Even lower than 4 years ago. For years, Democrats and the media kept saying that we needed new legislation. We had to have new legislation. We needed it immediately, and I never had legislation, and I had the best border in the history of our country for almost 4 years. And by the time I got out, we had the lowest numbers ever. My favorite chart of all time was brought down that day. And on that chart said we had the lowest numbers ever. But it turned out that we really didn't need new legislation. All you needed was a new president. And I said that the other night. That's all you needed was a new president saying, close the borders, because the Border Patrol is unbelievable, ICE is unbelievable, and all of our law enforcement is just incredible. All of you guys are amazing, and the people of our country respect you and they love you, and a lot of times you don't hear that because you have to listen to the fake news back there, but they have great respect for you, so I just want you to know that. And you know, that includes our fire departments, too. They don't get spoken about enough. You know, they go into some of the areas I read where they're shooting them off ladders. Can you believe it? They go up to put out a fire, Leo, and they go and they shoot them off a ladder. It's just unbelievable. These firemen and women are incredible. So I want to put them in the same category because they're just incredible. I also like that the fact they voted for me like at 94%. So I have to mention them. I have no choice, right? But the truth is they're phenomenal people. The law enforcement, fire, everybody, they're phenomenal. Basically first responders, because that's what they are. They're first responders. And we're ending the migrant occupation of America. And what we're doing now is we're liberating our cities and our suburbs and our towns. And you see a big difference. I'm getting calls all the time from even leaders of other countries saying, sir, the whole world feels liberated now. It feels like there's a light over America, but there's a light over the whole world. I hear that so much. It's so nice to hear, too. And I feel it. I mean, I feel it. I look at it. I see the polls. I don't know if the polls are right, but they're certainly very good. I'll take them right now. It's amazing what's taken place in such a short period of time, really 6 weeks, but it's longer than that. It's really November 5th. I think that hopefully will go down, if you do your job great, it'll go down as the most important day, one of them at least in the history of our country. You know, July 4th was pretty, 1776, it was pretty important too. But let's see if we can top it. Can we top it? I don't know. That's a tough one, but we're going to try. But it will be one of the most important days in the history of our country. So I think, and I think everybody in this room wants that to happen. Last month, we officially designated MS-13 and Tren That's the Venezuelan gang, the toughest gang, they say, in the world, and the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That's a big deal. Nobody wanted to do that in the past. And by the way, we've caught hundreds of them, the Venezuelan gang, which is as bad as it gets. And you'll be reading a lot of stories tomorrow about what we've done with them. And you'll be very impressed, and you'll feel a lot safer, too, because they are a vicious group. They went into Colorado. They took over areas of Colorado. They sort of were like me. They were in the real estate business, but they didn't go out and get financing. They just took over a building and kept it. and they said to the tenants, "Get the hell out of here." One man called the police, and they cut off his fingers, and they say, "You call again, your other fingers, and you call a third time, and you're dead." These are tough people and bad people, and we're getting them out of our country. And some are so bad, we don't want to get them out. We have to put them in jail because we don't want to even take a chance that they can come back. Thanks to our efforts, Mexico recently handed over 29 of the biggest cartel leaders, including the depraved kingpin charged with the 1985 murder of DE agent Kiki Camarena. And that was a big deal, if you know. They've been looking for this person for years, many years, and we got him. This evil killer will be now prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and we know that, well, it's, let's put it this way, I have to be nice, it's a very strong case. We're stopping the criminals pouring across our borders at record levels, and we're also stopping the massive quantities of deadly drugs. In 2023 alone, drug overdoses killed more Americans in 12 months than they did during the entire decade between 1980 and 1990, so 10 times more, but it's much higher than that. More Americans died from fentanyl last year than died in the Korean War, or the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, all of them combined. That's why I've placed large tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, and they will remain in place until these deadly poisons stop pouring into our country. And I will tell you, as soon as I put on the tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, unbelievable results have been seen in the last few weeks. Unbelievable results. They weren't happy about it. You probably read they weren't happy, but they are working like hell to end it. They weren't working very hard before I did that. With us today is a brave mother and advocate, Ann Fundner, who lost her beautiful 15-year-old son, Weston, to fentanyl. And Ann, if you would, I'd like to ask you to come up and say a few words, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first I want to say thank you. I think this is the biggest honor of my entire life, being on stage with President Trump. But I want to tell you a little bit about my son, Weston, who absolutely loved President Trump. He had a beautiful Trump 2020 flag hanging in his bedroom, and he had it on the beach one day, and we took a picture, and it became our 2020 Christmas card with the most perfect slogan for President Trump, peace on earth. What would happen in the next 4 years would be devastational to our country and our safety of our children. And in 2022, Weston lost his life, a freshman in high school at the age of 15, from a single pill that took his life. The cartels were allowed to operate on American soil and took hundreds of thousands of American lives. And so we knew there was only one person that could save us from the devastation on our American soil, and that was President Trump. And so in 2024, we did the best thing that we could do to keep America safe again, and we elected President Donald J. Trump. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And he's done everything that he has promised. We have a 98% decrease in border crossings. And he has labeled the terrorist cartels terrorist organizations. And he has instilled tariffs because there is no price on human life. And so I feel like I can speak for the entire fentanyl fighting community when I say thank you to President Trump, and thank you to Pam Bondi and everyone out here who is fighting this fight. God bless you. God bless you, President Trump. God bless America. Thank you.
He's up watching you. He's up there watching you. And he's so proud of Mom. Thank you, Ann, very much. Weston is, I just said to Ann, Weston is up in heaven watching his mom, and he's so proud of you. He's so proud of you. Thank you. We're also joined today by a number of other American families who have lost loved ones to fentanyl, and I'd love you to just stand up for a second, and we want to acknowledge you, and also your daughters, your sons. They're looking down on you, and they're loving you like crazy. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This department will not rest until we have ended the fentanyl epidemic in America once and for all. In less than 2 months since I took office, the DEA and FBI have seized nearly 1 million deadly doses of fentanyl, and that's just the beginning. At my direction and working with Pam and everybody else, we've launched an all-out war on fentanyl traffickers, and it's a war that we're going to win. We're going to win this war. I spoke with the president of Mexico, very nice woman, very fine woman, and I said, let me ask you, you're sending a lot of drugs into our country. We're not liking it at all. Can't do that. But I said, is Mexico, does it have much of a drug? She said, no, we're not a consuming nation. I thought it was an interesting term. And I said, why? And which I've heard also, by the way, they're not a consuming nation. They distribute, but they don't consume. But I said, why are you not a consumer? Well, we're very close with family. I said, so we're very close with family, too. I mean, our families are being devastated, and we're just as close. Why else? She said, well, we spend a lot of money on advertising saying how bad drugs are. They're very rough ads. They show the skin falling off and the teeth falling out and going blind and losing hair and everything that these things do. You look like you just came out of a horrible concentration camp. And she said it was, they're rough ads. And it's not often that I feel I've learned something from a phone call, because I've had a lot of phone calls over my life. But I realized right then and there what a great idea that is. And we have hired, Susie, a great person who did a lot of our campaign work, and we've come up with an advertising campaign that's, I think, really incredible. More than anything else, it's terrible to watch. It's terrible to watch. It's the only way it's going to work. And I would be, because we got the numbers down, 18% would have a blue ribbon committee headed by the First Lady of the United States, who everyone loves, and some of her friends. And, you know, they work so hard, but it's a tough deal. They're dealing with very smart and very vicious people. You know, some of those businesses, those cartels are run better than any business in America. They say they're run incredibly, not just here, all over the world. They're run like a major business, but in many cases better. And I said, we got it 18% down. Well, 18% is incredible. It's like a record, but when you think of it, it's not very much. And the way you get it down, if you want to get it down to close to 100%, is with the death penalty. But I think maybe America is not ready for that. China has the death penalty. Singapore has the death penalty. Various places have the death penalty. Wherever you have the death penalty, you don't have drugs. But I just don't know if this country is ready for it. So I tell people, and it's always an option, but I don't know. I just don't know if you're ready for it, and that's okay. It's nothing you can do. But what we're going to do is we're doing this campaign, and I think we can get it down 50% with this campaign, because when people see all the horrible things that these drugs do to you, we're especially focused on fentanyl. When they see all of the horrible things that happen when you take drugs, how you look, you lose your look. Everyone's vain. They don't want to lose their look. The look is so important. And I think when they see these things, they may say, you know what, I'm going to take a pass. But there is big danger. Pam and I were talking about it before. A lot of people are taking fentanyl and not even knowing. They think they're doing something else, or maybe taking another drug, but at a much lower level. And they die. You can put on the pin, think of this, the head of a pin, fentanyl, and it's too much, and it will kill the strongest person in the room. And it's amazing. But we're going to do this campaign. It's going to be launched fairly soon, Susie. And I think it's going to have a big impact. I think if we got it down by another 30, 35 points. And I really believe we can. I think that's an incredible idea. So I thank the president of Mexico, actually. It was a call on tariffs, and we talked about drugs. And she gave me an idea that I think will be very successful. And based on what I saw, it's going to be amazing. Under our leadership, this department is once again laser focused on protecting the American people. We're defending our borders, our streets, our children, and our good, really God-given, this is God-given rights and liberties once and for all. We're going to defend our country, and we're going to defend our rights. Etched onto the walls of this building are the words English philosopher John Locke said, "Where law ends, tyranny begins." And I see that, and I saw it over the last 4 years when somebody was allowed to attack viciously with this department and the FBI, his political opponent. How did that work out? Didn't work out too well, but it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant. I was attacked by a political opponent, and probably it helped that I was attacked more than anybody in the history of our country. Alphonse Capone, the great Alphonse Capone, legendary Scarface, was attacked only a tiny fraction of what Trump was attacked. And maybe it worked out well. I don't know. If I had to give it up, I probably wouldn't, but only because I've gone through it. But I wonder what the difference would be. Maybe they helped get me elected by those margins, the big mandate that we received. But you can't go after your political opponent. Nobody's ever seen anything like it, actually. And hopefully they won't see anything like it. But now, with the return of law and order, the entire world is witnessing the triumph of American justice and American freedom. That's why we're here today, gathered with people that have love for our country. In the coming years, we will revive the storied legacy of this department, and it's happening right now. I can feel it. And rekindle the spirit of the great lawmen and legal lions of the past, Americans like Wyatt Earp, Elliot Ness, Frank Hammer, Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani had to suffer greatly, greatly. He's the greatest mayor in the history of our country. He had to suffer greatly. Ed Meese, Antonin Scalia, Robert Jackson, and Robert F. Kennedy. We will rebuild pride in our institutions. We will restore the prestige of this great department, and we will bring back faith in our justice system for the citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. And I want to just tell you that this has been a great honor. I was asked to do it, and I said, is it appropriate that I do it? And then I realized it's not only appropriate, I think it's really important, and I may never do it again. I may never have another chance to do it again, because this is something that I'm leaving to the greatest people I know, the best people, the smartest people, the toughest people I know, and they're going to do an incredible job. And it's an honor for me to have won this election so that I can appoint these people to do their job, and they're going to do it like you have never seen. So I just want to wish all of you good luck. It's going to be an interesting journey. Not going to be easy, but you're going to win. You're going to win, 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 and fight, fight, fight. And it's going to end up being a tremendous result for this country. So thank you all very much. God bless America. God bless you all. Thank you.
And you were just watching President Donald Trump giving a speech at the Department of Justice covering a wide range of topics, including fentanyl, the border, and calling for an end of what he calls the weaponization of the justice system. In today's Business Matters, the shuttered Constitution gas pipeline project through New York could be revived. President Trump discussed potentially bringing back the project with New York's Governor Kathy Hochul. The pipeline was canceled in 2020 over opposition from politicians and environmentalists. The firm behind the project, Williams Companies, expressed appreciation for Trump's support. Williams said it was interested in the pipeline again, provided there's sufficient demand and support from Northeastern governors, including Hochul. Hochul's office described the chat as productive and said no formal agreements or decisions were reached. A 16-year extension for Montana's largest coal mine. The Trump administration has approved a plan to expand the Spring Creek mine in Bighorn County and extend its life. This will allow nearly 40 million tons of coal to be mined over the next 16 years. The expansion plan was blocked by a court order mandating a new federal environmental review, which was published just before Trump took office. Coal from the mine is used in power plants in Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota, and Washington. It's also used internationally in Japan and South Korea. Montana's all-Republican congressional delegation praised the move, while environmentalists expressed continued concern. The U.S. Postal Service has added Doge to its latest mailing list. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy told Congress that he signed an agreement with the Department of Government Efficiency to help cut costs. DeJoy explained that the Postal Service has a broken business model that was not financially sustainable without critical changes. DeJoy said some of its biggest problems include mismanagement of its retirement plans and restrictive regulations. Within the next month, USPS plans to cut 10,000 jobs through a voluntary retirement program. One congressman criticized the agreement, claiming Doge would undermine and privatize the Postal Service. How many unpaid toll text messages have you gotten recently? Well, Americans are apparently seeing a surge in this specific scam, and security experts don't expect the text to end anytime soon. In the last 3 months, cybersecurity firm Trend Micro have seen a 900% increase in searches for toll road scams. Threat research platform Census says the texts are coming from China. A senior researcher has identified 60,000 domains linked to the scams, and he traced them to Chinese networks. Experts say it's about more than stealing a couple bucks, it's about getting people's information. That's why they recommend ignoring all the texts altogether. And manufacturers are making moves out of China, and fast. The maker of Bratz and LOL Surprise Dolls plan to move 40% of its manufacturing into India, Vietnam, and Indonesia within 6 months. That's a sped-up timeline and a large chunk of its manufacturing that originally planned before President Trump's increased tariffs on China. California-based MGA Entertainment noted that it may have to raise wholesale prices on China-made products. Barbie maker Mattel also plans to close a factory in China by the end of the year. U.S. toy industry group Toy Association expects to see higher prices on shelves by back-to-school time. The relentless rise of gold has taken prices of the precious metal above the psychologically key $3,000 per ounce mark for the first time. Take a look.
Gold broke through the $3,000 an ounce milestone for the first time on Friday. It built on a historic rally as trade tensions and US rate cut bets supercharge its appeal as a safe story of value. Gold is traditionally viewed as a safe haven investment during times of inflation or economic volatility. Janet Moy is head of market analysis at RBC Brewin Dolphin.
Gold is really regarded as a hedge as stagflation. It works well in an inflationary environment, low growth environment, and also, of course, these geopolitical tensions that is happening at the moment. So I do think investors probably would favor gold going forwards, given this uncertain outlook.
Gold has risen 14% so far this year. The surge has been driven by concerns over the impact of US President Donald Trump's tariffs and a recent market sell-off in stock markets. One leading analyst said investors were searching for stability and finding it in gold. Bets on monetary policy easing by the US Federal Reserve have also helped its performance this year. The Fed is widely expected to keep its benchmark overnight interest rate unchanged at its meeting on Wednesday.
A secret closed-door hearing reported to be Apple's appeal over a backdoor to its encrypted cloud storage in the UK. Last month, the Washington Post reported that Britain issued a technical capability notice to enable access to Apple's encrypted messages and photos. In response, Apple removed its security encryptions for cloud data for users in Britain. Neither side has publicly confirmed the notice, but today the BBC is reporting Apple's appeal of the order was heard in secret, with no reporters allowed. The BBC says the hearing was simply listed as an application in private. at a court that reviews allegations of legal intrusions by public bodies. Your favorite acne treatment product may not be on the shelf. The FDA has announced 6 products being voluntarily recalled due to elevated levels of a chemical linked to cancer. They include products from Proactive, La Roche-Posay, and Walgreens. Testing revealed that the products contained elevated levels of benzene, which is found in crude oil and gasoline. But the agency says a person's risk of developing cancer after using the product is very low. The FDA is also stressing this recall is being conducted at the retail level. Consumers are not being told to take any action if they have the product at home. Italian luxury brand Gucci has appointed Demna as its artistic director. Parent company Kering made the announcement in a much-awaited move to revitalize the struggling label. But some investors haven't taken the news positively, as the new pick caused some controversy while working with Balenciaga. NTD Sean Marshall has more.
Gucci is sending shockwaves through the fashion industry after announcing Demna as its creative director. Demna, who goes only by his first name as of 2021. The struggling luxury house is seeking to generate some positive momentum. But parent company Kering is off to a rocky start after choosing the controversial creative director from Balenciaga. Kering owns both Gucci and Balenciaga. Kering lost around $3 billion in value on Friday after its stock closed down almost 11% in the European market. Investors weren't the only ones rattled by the decision. Fashion vloggers and bloggers online have been expressing both confusion and shock over the choice of Demna as creative director. Possible reasons include a controversial 2022 ad campaign involving children holding teddy bear handbags and wearing sexualized clothing, which Demna later said was the wrong artistic choice, and selling trash bags for $1,700 each and destroyed sneakers that arrived out of the box torn and frayed for $1,850. There's also a bit of a design contrast between Balenciaga's darkness and Gucci's vibrant colors. As controversial as Demna is or has been, let's take a look at why Gucci would go with such a risky decision. Balenciaga's revenue quadrupled during Demna's reign. When Demna started, Balenciaga sales floated at around $350 million. By 2022, sales were up to $2 billion. Gucci may be trying to duplicate Balenciaga's positive results. And Gucci's stock has been on a bit of a downward slump since mid-2021, having a prolonged sales decline with revenues down 24% in the fourth quarter of 2024. So the risk is there for a potential marketing scandal to drop the stock price even further, or it could be at such a low point that it could go up. So the question is whether bad publicity could still be good publicity for the company. Demna will show his final Balenciaga couture collection in July before starting at Gucci. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And Dollywood is kicking off its 40th anniversary celebration. So in light of that, Dolly Parton's popular theme park that's located in Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains opened to season pass holders today. And the general public can visit starting tomorrow. To mark the special anniversary, the season begins with the I Will Always Love You Music Festival to celebrate the art of songwriting. Dollywood is also adding a new restaurant and parking lot as part of a multi-year expansion. Meanwhile, General Motors could soon invest billions in the U.S. Trump said yesterday GM wants to invest $60 billion in the U.S. economy. The timeline of any proposed spending is unclear for now, and this comes after his meeting with CEO Mary Barra yesterday. That's Wednesday, and this is amid escalating U.S. tariffs. Trump and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick have said they want the auto industry to move more assembly and production to the U.S. A GM spokesperson said yesterday the company shares, quote, President Trump's goals of a strong and competitive American manufacturing base and economy. The European Parliament has banned Huawei lobbyists from entering its buildings. A spokesperson called it a precautionary measure, and it comes amid an investigation of suspected bribery that could have helped the Chinese tech giant. The Belgian prosecutors said the alleged corruption and it had taken place very discreetly since 2021. It involved disguising bribery as business and lobbying and payments with expensive gifts like meals as well and travel. This was in exchange for supporting certain political views. Hundreds of U.S. meat plants granted access to China in 2020 are set to lose export eligibility, threatening around $5 billion in trade to the world's largest meat market. Registrations are set to expire on Sunday. China has not responded to repeated requests from U.S. agencies to renew them. The U.S. was China's third largest meat supplier last year after Brazil and Argentina, accounting for 590,000 tons of total imports. In phase one of the trade deal signed in 2020 during the first Trump administration, Beijing pledged to boost its purchases of U.S. goods and services. If China breaks the deal, the loss would be a hard blow for U.S. meat exporters. Tesla says it could be impacted by retaliatory tariffs in response to President Trump's tariff policy. A letter to U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer lays out how it believes a trade war will hurt U.S. manufacturers and Tesla's operations. The company says U.S. trade policy needs to take into account limitations in the domestic supply chain. In particular, Tesla notes EVs and lithium-ion batteries, which it says are hard to source in the U.S. The letter from the Elon Musk-led electric car company is unsigned. The EU is set to increase tariffs on U.S. whiskey by up to 50% starting April 1st, and President Trump has threatened a 200% tariff on EU alcoholic products in return. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
President Trump has threatened a 200% tariff on wine, champagne and other alcoholic products from France and other EU countries. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said this comes in response to the EU imposing a, quote, nasty 50% tariff on whiskey. This latest escalation in trade tensions follows the EU's decision to impose countermeasures on U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs. The new tariffs, targeting $28 billion worth of U.S. goods, will take effect in stages starting in April. According to Christophe Bou, secretary of wine unions in South France, the new tariff is yet another blow for wine producers.
If we add all the issues we have been encountering lately, these new tariffs come on top of climatic hazards, a slowing economy, the geopolitical context, and the drop in our customers' purchasing power. This will put us in an even worse position.
He hopes both Europe and the U.S. will reconsider their decisions.
The U.S. is a mature market for wine, meaning consumers are familiar with the diversity of our production. These are mid-range to high-end products with significant added value, so we are in a tug-of-war. And the consequences on both sides could be severe.
Analysts warn that these trade disputes could further destabilize global markets and increase the risk of a recession in Europe. The potential tariffs have already impacted financial markets, with shares in major European beverage companies declining. One trader from one of those companies told me yesterday off the record that if Trump's 200% tariffs were implemented, it would be a fatal blow to the high-end French alcohol market, particularly for cognac and champagne, which rely heavily on exports. One reason for this is that these alcohol producers are already facing tariffs from China due to the EU-China trade war, and they had been counting on the US market to sell their products. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
And stocks rebounded today. A broad rally boosted all three major U.S. stock indexes to solid gains, with recently battered tech-related megacaps enjoying a comeback. So every one of the so-called Magnificent Seven artificial intelligence-related momentum stocks advanced, although 6 of them remained down for the year. S&P 500 and Nasdaq lodged their biggest one-day percentage gain since November 6th, the day after the U.S. presidential election. And that is it on today's Business Matters. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific.